Hello, and can you guess where I am today? Well, there's a reason why you've got a background, because the company I work for has recently issued new social media guidelines that say I'm not allowed to share pictures or images of the hotel I'm in. Because these days, and this is probably a fair comment, through geo-mapping and other clever stuff, it's actually very easy to work out if you put images up where you are. So, for example, you can't see it, but there's a window there. Well, my hand's gone a funny colour, so you might be able to see if I'm not careful. There's a window there. You might be able to work out what's outside of it, and therefore where our hotel is. So I sort of get it. So that's why whenever I'm down route now, I will have a background up. I will try and make it relevant to the place I'm in. So, okay, I'm not... This photograph that you're seeing now was actually taken in... oh God, what's on the other side of the Manhattan Bridge? The bridge. What's the bridge called? I'm so rubbish at remembering names. Hang on, let me just have a look on the oldie Google Maps. Brooklyn. There you go. I've remembered before I looked at the maps. So that you can actually see the Brooklyn Bridge there in the image, and the New World Trade Center Tower sort of there. And yeah, so I am in New York, but I'm not where the photograph suggests that I am for obvious reasons. Does this still work with all that nonsense as well? Apparently not, unless I've got it switched off. Hang on. FaceTime HD camera. Reactions. Yeah, it should work. So I should be able to do that. Bit pointless, but I can do it. Actually, maybe a bit tasteless to show things exploding in New York. Let's do that instead. Oh, we're all having good fun now. Or maybe just that. Awesome rain. Yes, I'm bored. Right. Okay, anyway. Sorry. But why is that not working then? Am I just doing it? Oh, there it is. It is working. I was just doing it slightly wrong. Right, so I'm in New York City today. I'm not going to... Because so where I am, the time is 10:30 in the morning. We're picked up in about 10 hours. So I want to get a few hours sleep before I go. But I've been very, very good today. So I've been to the gym. I've cycled 10 miles on a static bike, which was hell because I haven't done that for a while and I'm in pain. But it was worth it. Well, I need to do it a bit more often because then I will hopefully lose some weight. Yeah, so let's have a look. I just need to send a little test text. Make sure that all that's working. It is! Hooray! So yes. So what I'm going to try and do now is sign off at least one, if not 2 chapters of Empress of the Trees. I don't know why I find that so amusing, the fact that it does that. But yeah, I wonder what gestures set up the fireworks then. I'll have to look into that. Look into it. No, stop it. No, let's do some work. So I've got, basically what I've got here is a mammoth, what was originally one chapter. It was a mammoth chapter, and it was, well, it's something really significant happens in it. And what I did, because there is a natural cliffhangery point within the chapter, I thought it would be a good idea to actually break it into 2 so it isn't quite so long, and actually utilise that cliffhanger. Now the reality is cliffhangers are only as good as, you know, if somebody reads the next chapter straight away, then all it does is serve as an incentive to read that chapter. But yeah, so I've just felt there's the moment in this which deserved to be end of chapter moment. So I split the chapter into 2. They're both still fairly long. I think one's 13 of these printed pages and the other one is 11. So it was one of my longer chapters, coming in at about 9,000 words, and I have had chapters slightly longer than that, but this, as I said, there was just a natural breaking point. So, bearing in mind that I've set myself a goal of getting to the end of chapter 30 by the end of the month, it is now the 7th of June, and if I finish this, I'm halfway there. I'm at the end of chapter 25. So I've edited 5 of the 10 I wanted to edit this month. That's fine. I've no problems with getting ahead. As I've said on here and on my podcast before, I'm not working in July, so I intend to do a lot of writing. I absolutely want to sign off the second draft of Empress, and then I want to start working on the first draft of the still life sequel, not Blank Canvas, that's the final one, Self-Portrait. And one of the reasons I say kind of, I did try starting it a couple of years ago in NaNoWriMo, and nearly everything I've written isn't going to make the cut. There is one of the 3 chapters where I'll probably keep most of the material. One of them is getting scrapped completely, and one of them I've read and is just awful, and I'm going to write it from scratch, with just basically the ideas in my head. So yes. Hang on a second, I keep getting text messages. It's okay, I'm about to go back to bed, to be honest, because we're picked up soon, I did go to the gym and have breakfast, though. Right, let me go back to... Sorry, some people just don't respect the twitching. Right, oh, and the other thing I need to mention, because I always seem to forget it, on the top right-hand corner of my screen, there is a QR code. All of my social medias are on that QR code, and one of the things that's on there is a Discord server, which, if you join my Discord server, you will see that there is, when I press this button, there you go, a live audio stream. So if somebody would like to contact me via the text messaging, the stuff that comes up on the screen within Twitch, please do so. But if you'd like to actually talk to me using your voice, you may dial into my my Discord server. It does mean your voice will appear on here, though, so be sure that's what you want. Right, I'm going to do a bit of work. So again, the way I'm doing this is it's off paper, which means that what you see on the screen, until I make an alteration, won't necessarily be everything. Right, let me just do that. Okay, so I'm going to go chapter 24, Betrayals. I just need something to use as a bookmark. Oh, no, that's got the hotel logo on it. I'll get into trouble for that. So is that. Oh, I won't have a bookmark. Right. Ronnie woke just after 9 o'clock the next morning and went through to her bathroom, where she enjoyed a luxurious shower. She put on clean clothes and walked down the stairs, Private Vickers following her with his rifle. Marianne was in the office viewing some security feeds. They were not in the mood for interruptions and were ready to snap at whoever just opened the door, but when they glanced up and saw it was Ronnie, their expression softened. "Are you all right, lovely?" Ronnie shook her head. "I can't get yesterday out of my mind." Marianne nodded. "I'm not surprised. Do you feel like eating?" Ronnie nodded. "Nothing fried, just some croissants. Lots and lots of croissants and pastries. I can get them." Marianne stood up. They were wearing gym gear but had not worked out yet. "No, don't be silly." They glanced up, trying to see who was standing behind Ronnie in the hall. "Who's your shadow today?" Ronnie smiled. "The nice one." Marianne grinned and walked over to the door. They peered past Ronnie at Vickers, who was alert and keenly observing everything around him. "Hey, soldier, would you like some breakfast?" "I'm not bitten to eat on duty," Vickers replied. Marianne rolled her eyes. "So no bacon for you?" "No, thanks." "No sausage sandwich? Fried egg?" "No, thank you, miss." Marianne smiled. "I'm not miss." Sorry, Marianne could see that he was itching to follow it up with sir or madam. He paused. "I think of you as a girl. It's hard to get out of the habit of referring to you that way. I don't mean to offend you." Marianne looked down at the tight gym top which hugged the straight lines of their upper body. "You think of me as a girl? In this? Really?" They grinned and walked across to the double doors that led into the kitchen. Ronnie went after them, with Vickers following close behind. God, no alterations on page 1 at all. Oakley and Ursula were already sitting and talking in the snug. Oakley smiled when he saw them, a look which turned to frown when Vickers followed them in. "I'll never get used to that," he snapped, gesturing to Vickers and his gun. Ronnie sat down. Marianne was heading for the food preparation area, but Oakley called them over. "I've got a couple of things to tell both of you." Marianne rolled her eyes, but joined Ronnie nonetheless. "You'll like it," said Oakley. "Carruthers called me this morning. He's found Mackenzie, safe and well." "Where?" asked Marianne. They were trying not to smile, but failing. "Somewhere in the Highlands. Carruthers wouldn't tell me exactly where. I could find out if I made the effort, but to be honest, he's right. It's better we don't know, because if we don't, whoever is sharing information about us can't. It's better we don't know, because if we don't, whoever is sharing information about it can't. Share it, I mean. Oakley took a sip from a half-empty coffee cup. And Cockerell Wright has just informed me that the government are going to announce policies that tie in with Idrisil's directives at 7 o'clock this evening. Marianne nodded. I'm going to go and do an enormous shop then. Oakley nodded. Good idea. Why? Asked Ronnie. Because by tomorrow morning the shops will be empty. You've seen how people panic buy over the suggestion of a bad storm. Oakley shook his head. It will be crazy outside from the moment the Prime Minister has completed a broadcast. Ronnie nodded. I'll come with you. Vickers, who'd been standing quietly in the background, scanning the room with his eyes, spoke up. No, you won't, miss. Ronnie glared across at him and stood up. I'm not a prisoner. If I want to go shopping, I'll bloody well go shopping. Vickers shook his head. I'm sorry, Miss Ronnie, we can't guarantee your safety out there. It would be better if you didn't. Ursula piped up. He's right, dear, bearing in mind what happened to Danny. Ronnie sat back down again and squeezed her eyes together. A tear ran down her cheek, which she wiped away angrily. Marianne patted her shoulder. At that moment, Lance Corporal Barrera walked through the double doors and into the kitchen, also carrying his gun. He looked annoyed. He'd gone off duty the night at 8 and probably wanted to be asleep right now. He walked over to Vickers. You're on leave, Private Vickers. Report to Captain Greening immediately. You're being shipped out. Ronnie looked up. Why? Barrera shrugged. I have no idea, miss. Ronnie scowled. He's the only one in my protection team that I like. No offence, but he's not going anywhere. Go and get me the captain. Barrera looked uncomfortable. Now, said Ronnie tersely. Barrera scowled and left the room. What is that about? Said Oakley to nobody in particular. He looked over to Vickers. Do you have any idea, Private? No, sir. Vickers looked worried. I thought I was here for the foreseeable. Marianne carried a plate of vegan pastries over to Ronnie, who picked at them unenthusiastically. A few moments later, Captain Greening stormed into the room. You will report to the command centre at the double, Private Vickers, he shouted. Ronnie stood up. He won't, you know. Not until you explain to me exactly why he's being sent away. Ronnie glared at the officer, who stared back. Vickers tried to leave the room, but Ronnie kept standing in front of him. He gave an exasperated sigh as he looked back across to Greening and shrugged, just as Barrera walked back into the room. I have my orders, hissed Greening. Vickers tried to walk around Ronnie again, but she deftly moved back into his path. Restrain her, said Greening to Barrera. Barrera stepped towards Ronnie. Just try it, she snapped. Barrera walked towards her, and she slapped him hard in the face as soon as he was close enough. I think the ambassador has a right to understand why her personal guard is changing, said Oakley, as diplomatically as he could. Greening was going a deep purple colour, but he held the anger building up inside him back. Well, one of her personal guard changed yesterday because she let him die. Those things, whatever they were, tried to protect Private Vickers. If we can understand why, then we may have some form of defence against them. He's going to report to an MD for tests. Ronnie shook her head. I forbid it. Greening glared at her. Those are my orders. You cannot forbid it. Ronnie moved towards him and glared up into his angry eyes. I am the ambassador to Idrisil, Empress of the Trees. I formally request that Private Vickers remain assigned to my protection team. Request denied. We will see, snapped Ronnie. Mr. Oakley, your phone? Oakley stepped over to her. Why? He asked as he handed over the phone. I'm going to tell the Right Honourable Derek Cockerell Wright MP, Minister for DEFRA, that Private Adrian Vickers is staying right here. Oakley shook his head. You can't do that. What's that bit doesn't make sense? I found a bit that doesn't make sense and I finally need to make an alteration. Hang on. Page 4. Oakley shook his head. You can't do that. I've written the response was it had better. I bloody well can. Ronnie unlocked the phone. Oakley not even realised that she knew his password and dialed the minister. She'd expected to get a secretary, but the call connected quickly and the smooth, somewhat smarmy tones of the minister oozed into her ears. She hit the hands-free button as soon as the call connected so that everybody could hear the conversation. Yes, Mr. Oakley, we will have to keep this brief as I'm rather busy. It's not Mr. Oakley. It's Veronica Arden. What can I do for you, Ambassador? The army wants to ship out one of my protection team. There was a brief silence. Private Adrian Vickers, the gentleman who was protected by the Scult during yesterday's incident. Ronnie was shocked that he already knew about the reassignment, but stayed firm. Yes, he's not leaving. I want him here. There was another short pause. Are you attempting to protect your interests, Ambassador? Are you worried that we would work out why it wouldn't attack him, that we might be able to replicate that? Ronnie shook her head. Hello, Bow Street Society. How are you? I've had quite a productive morning this morning. Well, I say it's not really the morning in your time, but it's only like 20 to 11 here. Are you sat outside? It is a virtual background because we basically have new social media guidelines and we're not allowed to share images of the hotel we're in at all. So when I'm down route now, that includes presumably doing a live stream from my room. So yes, I will now have to down route. It does. I mean, they're saying it's because obviously from a security point of view, they don't want us to know. They don't want people to be able to work out where the hotels are. And I was just saying earlier that I'm by a window, and if I showed you what was outside the window, you might be able to work out the general location and stuff like that. So yes, from now on, when I do this kind of thing from a hotel room, I will chuck a virtual background up. I will try and make the background relevant to the country I'm in. So I'm in New York, in Manhattan, and obviously what you've got behind me there is a picture I took from Brooklyn of the Manhattan skyline. But yes, that is what I shall do from now on. Yeah. So yeah, how are you? I'm enjoying this. I'm on to page 5 and I've made my page 4. I made my first alteration. If I can get these signed off today, which I should be able to the rate I'm going now, I'm going to have 5 of the 10 chapters I set myself as a goal for this month signed off on the 7th, which I'm pretty pleased with. There was another short pause. Are you attempting to protect your interests, Ambassador? Are you worried that we could work out why it wouldn't attack him and that we might be able to replicate that? I am chuffed, I really am. Ronnie shook her head. No, he's the only person in my protection team that... She looked around her at all the watching faces and finally at Vickers. She didn't want to embarrass him. Well, he's not as annoying as the others. But you do understand why we need to know how he was protected. Ronnie frowned. I see why you might think you could find an advantage. You'd be wrong, though. One of your team, Marianne, was it? Is also immune to the attention of the school. Perhaps we could negotiate. Her for him. Oakley gave Ronnie a warning glance but said nothing. Ronnie pondered for a second. What are you going to do with them? Draft 13 of the prologue. Wow, I don't think I've ever done 13 actually, but then I work in a different way to you. So if I worked in the same way as you, I probably would. Maybe not as many as that, but more than it looks like on paper that I currently do. Oakley gave Ronnie a warning glance but said nothing. Ronnie pondered for a second. What are you going to do with them? Blood and DNA tests are full medical essentially. Then you don't need 2 people. Then don't you need 2 people at least? I assume you're looking for a common factor and how to exploit it. Marianne looked angry at her, but Ronnie held up a hand to stop them from saying anything. There is a logic in what you say, Cocklewright acquiesced. Then can I give you an alternative? I know of other Yukunda. If you agree to leave Vickers alone and the subjects will not be harmed in the slightest, I can give you at least 2 names. Cocklewright wondered. But we would only have your word for it. We have several witnesses who saw both Private Vickers and Marianne protected by the Skuld, myself included. Are you saying that my word isn't good enough, Minister? Because it rather feels like the whole world is about to change based on my word. There was a long pause. All right, Ambassador. They won't be harmed? Body scans and tissue samples only, I promised. Ronnie paused. Can I give you the names then? Yes, Ambassador. End of page 5. Erica Yates and Riordan Abel, second-year medical genetics students at Mansfield University. As far as I know, they both still live at the University Halls of Residences called Mendell House. There was a pause as the Minister took some notes. All right, I have that. I will arrange for the transfer order for Private Vickers to be rescinded. Good. Ronnie hit the button to end the call and handed the phone back to Oakley. Greeny turned on his heels and left, gesturing to Pereira to follow him. How do you know they're Yukunda? Asked Ursula. You haven't been to university since you've had the ability to... You haven't been to your university since you've had the ability to identify them. Ronnie sat down and her face went slightly red. She looked across to Vickers. You won't say anything? Vickers gave a smile. Mum's the word. I don't know Erica's Yukunda, said Ronnie. If anything, I know she's not. We made up afterwards, but she treated Danny terribly when we first arrived at the halls. She was a total cow. And Riordan is one of her mob, another bully. She looked up at the others. Don't hate me. Oakley smiled. So the doctors will test them and find nothing. Good souls aren't genetic, stated Ronnie. They wouldn't have found anything in Vickers or Marianne either. Oakley burst out laughing. Oh well, I'm sure Lord Farnborough will approve. Approve of what? Farnborough had wandered down in his dressing gown. Any chance of some brekkie, old chap? He said to Marianne. I'm not an old chap, said Marianne. Farnborough's face tuckened. I'm the boss. Get me some bloody food. Ronnie stood up and walked over to Lord Farnborough. Oakley slipped out of the door at the back, shaking his head. It was going to be a day of battles for Ronnie, it would seem. Oakley sat down behind the desk in his office and turned on two of the monitors. For once, the screens did not show images from the various security cameras around Forest Lodge. Instead, he was looking at a web browser. The media had just been informed that the Prime Minister was going live to the nation this evening. Notification had also come in that the President of the United States of America was making a statement at 2 p.m. from Washington, which, thanks to the time difference, was the same moment. Reports were coming in from other countries that were planning to do the same thing. Canada had just announced their statement was being broadcast live. Mexico, Chile, Argentina, all at the same time as the others. Someone at the BBC had made the connection, and whatever this story was, it was most likely global. France and Germany. A few minutes later, Spain and Italy. Then most of the rest of Europe. Oakley watched the news progress over the next hour. Someone at the BBC drew an interactive map that showed each country and a colour code showing when they were due to make their announcement. Alongside Europe, most of the North and South American continent had turned green. Russia had announced they were making a statement at midday tomorrow, which is 6 a.m. UK time. They were coloured yellow on the map, and they were the only country that had chosen that time. Everywhere else had settled on a broadcast that equated to 8 o'clock UK time tomorrow morning. The local times varied, but it was as late as 7 p.m. in New Zealand and midday in Israel. These countries were highlighted in red on the map. Pundits were already speculating on what this was about. Oakley opened a new window and turned on the live news feed from the BBC. He caught the tail end of a weather report, and then the channel went straight into the news headlines that every country in the world was making an announcement in 3 waves. The same map he'd already been looking at online, picking out the countries in either red, yellow or green, came up on the screen. Australia had announced a time since he looked at the map on the news website. It was now showing as red. The reporter who was talking the viewers through the map handed back over to the main presenter in the studio as Marianne came into the room with a steaming mug of coffee. They set it down on the desk. Oakley grunted a thank you and then pointed to the screen. Look. Marianne took in the map and the key that explained it. At least it's not just us, they breathed. Quite, said Oakley, taking a sip from his coffee. The presenter continued to talk. There is worldwide speculation regarding what these joint announcements will be about. A spokesperson from the Prime Minister's office has confirmed that the simultaneous timing with the United States is no coincidence. However, anybody who saw the press conference from Carl Tucker 2 nights ago will be wondering if what he said could be at least partially correct. I have Carl Tucker on the line now. Mr. Tucker. The picture changed to the view of the inside of a study. There was a large Union Jack on the wall, as well as the logo for the Red Victors and a bookcase full of books and ornaments. In my original version of this, it included a Death Star from Star Wars. I actually saw it on the news. There was this minister who was like out to prevent war, and one of his ornaments was a Death Star, and I just thought brilliant. And that just made me think of Carl Tucker, and I nearly included it as a detail, and then decided I've got enough pop culture references in this. I don't need any more. There was a large Union Jack on the wall, as well as the logo for the Red Victors and a bookcase full of books and ornaments, including a Death Star. Carl Tucker was sitting behind a desk in the middle of the screen. My statement was not partially correct, Tucker snapped. It was fully correct. We have a source inside the government. Today the Prime Minister is going to force green policies on a country that did not vote for them, things that were not in their manifesto. Similar policies will be announced around the world. It will be the policies I revealed in my press conference, one that was cut short under highly dodgy circumstances, I might add. I can't do his accent. He's a sort of a Mockney, Cockney, kind of David Tennant, Doctor Who kind of accent, but I can't do it, so I'm not going to try. So why this, and why now? Asked the presenter. Assuming you are right, why is the world suddenly choosing to change direction? Carl Tucker ignored the question. What right do they have to put in measures to drastically reduce the population? To make petrol so expensive nobody can afford it? To ban air travel? To stop farmers producing and selling meat? He was stabbing the index finger of his right hand on the desk in front of him as he said each point. I'm going to change that to made each point. So that's page 8. Well, that's the second word I've changed in this chapter. As he made each point. Mark my words, this is what they will be announcing. The economy will be decimated after this. Jobs are going to be lost practically overnight. Supply chains that provide us with food, medicine and goods will disintegrate. So why are they doing it now, repeated the presenter, and indeed why does the whole world seem to be on the verge of making simultaneous announcements? Tucker gave an ugly smile. As I said in my press conference, there is an environmental pressure group that acts worldwide called Arbor Associates. I understand they met with a DEFRA minister last month. I also understand that similar meetings took place in Scotland, Wales and Ireland. I don't know what this group does exactly. They are registered as an environmental charity in most countries, and there is evidence they have met other leaders globally. I believe they are behind what the governments are going to announce. Do you have proof that Arb Associates are linked to all of this, or are you speculating? The presenter sounded sceptical. Nothing I can talk about yet, but I do know this. Our government is... God, 2 words on the same page needed adjusting. Appalling. Our government is about to launch a set of policies that nobody wants. Policies that will destroy our economy and threaten millions of British jobs. Policies that are going to change the lives of everyone in this great country. They have to be stopped. That is why today I've registered the Red Victors, a political party, with the Electoral Commission. We will stand at a general election and oppose the measures that the government will announce tonight. We will stop them and Arb Associates. We will start by picketing one of their headquarters here in the UK, which is a place called Forest Lodge between Keswick and Windermere in the Lake District. Arbour House, what they laughingly call their ambassadors there. Oakley and Marianne looked at each other. I'm sure it'll be fine, said Oakley. There's enough military personnel and hardware here to stop some silly protest. It probably won't even happen anyway. Marianne looked concerned. I hope not. I'm just going to add a line because they said earlier they needed to do a big shop. And I think I'm just going to add... Marianne took in the map and the key to explain it. At least it's not just us, they breathed. Quite, said Oakley, taking a sip for his coffee. Marianne shook the head. Freezer is full now anyway. Freezer is now full anyway. Which one? All of them. There we go. So that just... Right then, that just adds... Because I suddenly realised I made the big deal about the shopping and then never actually confirmed that it happened. Right. A moment later, Lord Farnborough barged into the room. He was now dressed in a brown tweed suit. He was about to start speaking when he noticed Marianne was at the desk with Oakley. Out! He demanded, pointing to the door he had just rushed through. Marianne looked at him with pure contempt, but did as they were told, slamming the door behind them. Farnborough flung himself down on the chair opposite Oakley. Have you seen the news? The Red Victors have launched a political party and told people where we are. I want to know who told them. We have countless properties and offices around the country, so it is no coincidence that the existence and location of this place have been leaked. It has to be that stupid boy, Mackenzie. Don't be silly, exclaimed Oakley. I think ridiculous is probably more what he would say there. Don't be ridiculous, exclaimed Oakley. We wouldn't know where most of our facilities... He wouldn't know where most of our facilities are, even. Let me italicise the R. I can assure you that Mackenzie has nothing to do with this. Farnborough raised his hand. Stop talking, Mr. Oakley, and start listening. I'm done with being polite and letting you question what I say. I can't take the risk that Mackenzie is going to divulge any more privileged information. I want him dealt with, permanently. Carruthers as well, if he causes any problems. I will not allow any harm to come to either of them. Mr. Oakley, you are one of the privileged few who knows what is about to happen and has a guaranteed place in the new world once it has happened. I will not accept insubordination. You will deal with Mackenzie permanently and his full mentor if need be. This is not a request, it is an order. If Mackenzie survives, then you will not be joining that future. You will die with the rest of the human race. You want me to arrange the death of a 20-year-old whose life we screwed up. I don't want you to arrange anything, Mr. Oakley. You must do it yourself. You will ensure Mackenzie dies by your hand as soon as possible. Do you know where he is? Not exactly, said Oakley coldly. Carruthers is being cagey. Find out. Oakley had gone pale in the face and there was a fine sheen on his brow. I'll locate him and kill him. Oakley shook his head. Farnborough leaned down so that his face was inches from Oakley's. Do you want to die with everyone else? Have you any idea what it would be like to slowly suffocate? To watch everyone around you die unless you are one of the lucky ones that die first? I'm just going to... There's a lot of die in that, so let's make it less... Let's find... Right. You want to die? You know what it would be like to watch everyone else... I've already used the word suffocate. You suffer. Suffer? Unless you're one of the lucky ones that... I'm just going to try and find a synonym for die. Because I'm a cheerful chappy. No. Perish, expire. There we go. I knew there'd be good words. Right, let's... And kill him. Oakley shook his head. Farnborough leaned down so that his face was inches from Oakley's. Do you want to die with everyone else? Have you any idea what it would be like to slowly suffocate? To watch everyone around you expire, unless you are one of the lucky ones that perish first? Is that what you want, Mr. Oakley? Because you are moments away from that being your fate. And once I've made up my mind, I will not be changing it. He paused, then stood up. Well, more blood drained from Oakley's face and he was sweating profusely. No. Would you? Oh, a cold sweat, I suppose. He looked down, exhaled, and closed his eyes for a few seconds. All right, he finally said. You'll do it. Yes, say it, Oakley. I will find Mackenzie Stewart and kill him. Oakley was shaking with anger, but he'd never seen this deadly earnestness in Farnborough's face before. Deadly earnestness? Don't like that word. Intensity. Intensity is a good word. Deadly intensity, that's better. But he'd never seen this deadly intensity in Farnborough's face before. And you can get rid of the bloody tranny you can get rid of the tranny as well. It's pissing me off. Kill Marianne? No, just get it out of my sight. Sack it, get rid of it. Ronnie won't like that. Farnborough leaned forward. The ambassador is getting too big for her boots. She has a role to fulfil, but she is not in charge. I am. Kill Mackenzie, get rid of Marianne. Oakley was shaking with rage, and he took a deep breath to calm himself down. I've instructed Idrisil that Marianne may not be one of the chosen Yakunda to survive. He straightened up and walked to the door, his hand resting on the handle. Let me know when it's done. With that, he pulled the door open and strode out into the hall. Oakley sat in his chair and stared numbly at the monitors in front of him. Marianne sat crouched in the cinema on the far side of one of the sofas, hidden from the door. Their face was bright red from where they'd been crying. They slammed their fists into the couch in frustration and forced their breathing to slow. Once they'd calmed down a little, Marianne dried their eyes. There was only one thing they could think of to do. It was dangerous, but there was no alternative. They pulled the mobile phone from their pocket and scrolled through the list of contacts until they found Carruthers. Trembling, they dialed. The phone rang at the other end for a few moments, and the distinctive Scottish voice answered the call. Yes, what can I do for you, Marianne? Carruthers. This will seem like a lie because it's so far-fetched. I promise you it's not. I just heard Lord Farnborough ordering Oakley to kill Mackenzie, and you too if you get in his way. There was a crackle and the line went dead. They were unsure if the message had been received. Hello? Can you hear me? Behind them the door opened. Oakley looked in and saw Marianne with her back to him. He hid behind the door but left it open so that he could listen. Carruthers, snapped Marianne. Did you hear me? There was another pause. I can, and I did. Do you know why? Farnborough thinks Mackenzie is the mole. That's absolute rubbish, snapped Carruthers. You know that, and I know that. I suspect that Farnborough knows it too. Mackenzie is a loose end. Farnborough never did like loose ends. There was a brief pause. Thank you for telling me. You're taking a great risk. Are you safe? Farnborough has ordered Oakley to fire me. Can you get north of the border? If I can protect Mackenzie, I can protect you too. I don't know. I can try. Get to Inverness. There is an unpleasant little man called Duncan Ross who drinks every evening in a pub called the Castle Tavern. Find him, and I will find you. Good luck. Destroy your phone, said Marianne urgently. They can track you through it. Mackenzie told me that. I didn't believe him. It's true. Get rid of it. All right, I will. Stay safe. Let me know when you get there. One more thing. Mackenzie wants to tell you that he misses you. Marion gave a sad smile. Yeah, tell him I miss him too. I will. Gonna smash my phone now. Glad it's not one of those new expensive ones. Good luck. The line went dead. Marianne knows what you want me to do. Oakley looked furiously in front of Farnborough in the hall just outside the kitchen. They're in the basement now. Farnborough gave a small smile. He held up his phone and waved at Oakley. I know. I can listen to any calls in and out of here. He pocketed the phone. I'm surprised that you told me, though. He looked around him. Maybe I can trust you after all. Farnborough shook his head. Unfortunately, that also means you have to kill Marianne. Now. Oakley closed his eyes, but eventually opened them and nodded. I know. And you're okay with that? Oakley rolled his eyes. Of course I'm not bloody okay with that. But I don't have a choice, do I? No, said Farnborough coldly. Let me know when it's done. Bullet to the head, Mr. Oakley. Don't leave anything to chance. Oakley nodded and ran out of the room. Marianne sat hidden behind the sofa, sobbing gently. How had everything fallen apart so quickly and completely? They looked at their trembling hands and then thrust the mobile phone into their pocket. They looked up from their hiding place and looked around. They had not noticed that the door was open or that Oakley had entered the room. He looked somewhat apologetically at them, then raised his right hand. It contained a gun. Outside. Now, said Oakley, gesturing towards the door. I will conceal the gun. We will walk out into the woods at the back past all of the soldiers. If you do not do as I say, I'll have to kill you. I'm sorry. Marianne shook her head. You just heard me. On the phone. I did. And more importantly, so did Lord Farnborough. So you're going to kill me? It was not a question. I'm sorry, said Oakley again. He gestured to the steps through the open door. But not here. Outside. Now. Marianne started to cry but walked to the door. Oakley followed, and they turned back to face him. Make it quick. Oakley's face softened, and he looked away. I promise, he said. Is there any way you could consider letting me go? Don't make this harder than it is, snapped Oakley. It's you or me. I'm sorry, but that's the stark choice I've been given. Now move. Marion and Oakley walked up the spiral staircase and into the kitchen, which was now empty. We'll use the garden room exit, said Oakley. Walk in front of me. The gun was concealed in his coat pocket. Marianne walked through the garden room, past the furniture and over to the door. They opened it with trembling hands and looked back at Oakley. He pointed to the garden, an impassive look on his face. Marianne knew that he did not want to do this, that he was battling with his conscience. They looked away from his pale face and walked into the garden. Oakley followed them across the lawn and out through the small gate that led into the forest. They walked past the temporary barracks. This was a dangerous moment. He half expected Marianne to ask for the help of the soldier that was stationed outside the tents, but they did not. They moved past them and deeper into the woods. They continued walking for 5 minutes until Oakley spoke. Here will do. Marianne's face was wet with tears. They nodded and stood rooted to the spot, facing away from him. Turn around, said Oakley. Shoot me in the back, cried Marianne through their sobs. No, turn around now. Marianne turned and looked into the eyes of their killer. Just get it over with. Oakley nodded. Sorry, he said, and raised his gun. I'm going to say executioner instead of killer. I have seen, I am aware of the classic trailers because they've done Doctor Who, they've done Star Wars, and they've even done stuff like Stargate SG-1. So yes, no, I am familiar with the channel, and I have watched several of them. Thank you. I like it because although they're taking the piss, they're done with quite a lot of knowledge and quite a lot of love, I would say, because you can't take the piss to the degree they do without having a good knowledge of the subject matter, which means it's genuinely people that like the show that are doing them, and I think that's part of the reason why I find them so entertaining. Right, so that was meant to be halfway through the chapter, but I just thought the point where Oakley raises the gun to Marianne was a brilliant chapter end. So let's export it to Word and run it through everybody's favourite AI that tells me to add and remove lots of commas. Right, let's just do that. Is this video okay? Yep, it's a decent one. Well, I'm hoping the audience will realise he's not going to go through with it, but as I explain later on, Marianne has to believe he's going to go through with it because the house is covered in surveillance, and Oakley knows that Farnborough's going to be watching exactly what is said. So, but yeah, that was the middle of the chapter. But I just thought, no, that's too good an opportunity to kind of miss. Yeah, that's the end of episode 3. Or 4 actually, I'm not sure. Probably 3 actually. Right, let's see what this is telling me to do today. Oh, it's giving me a 90% score, so that's good. Only as we're seeing them, only saw them. Oh, actually, yes, I'm going to go with what Grammarly says on this occasion. That's better. Panic buy. Would panic buy be hyphenated? I guess it probably would be, wouldn't it? Yeah. I'm going to lose the word personal and just change it to security team is probably a better way of putting that. That should probably look angrily. I love the way. Oh, I love the way it Grammarly tries to make me pay for suggestion or whatever. No, I'm happy with that's dialogue. No, I'm fine with that. Everyone is always after your money, huh? Oh yeah, yeah. Well, they can sod off. A lot of the time, you can kind of work out what they're hinting at. But as I say, when it's giving me a 91% overall score, I don't think I'm, you know. That's a better way of saying that, though. To be fair. Mackenzie survives. They will not be joining them in that future. That's absolutely what I want to say. Fortunately, it means that's better. No, actually, I don't want a comma there. Of course, I'm not bloody okay with that. That's fine. Oakley nodded and that can go. Sorry, he said, and raised his gun. Hey! Oh god, that was really easy to, mind you. Didn't make many alterations. So let me download the file. Let me do that. Open it quickly. What am I doing? I want to just create a new one there. So paste it in, copy it back, and then shove it into the correct chapter, which is that one. Oh, not meant to be full page though. Why has it done that? Grammy, why'd you do this weird rubbish? That's not the right chapter, that's why. Why is that? Go away, you. Right, let's have the right chapter. Chapter 24, Betrayals. Right. Format you, and you, and you. No, no, don't sing the Jimmy Savile theme, that's wrong. Get you cancelled. Right, chapter 24 is signed off. Magic. Let me just lose those documents because I don't need those anymore. And drag that into the edited folder. What time is it? Oh, it's about 4 o'clock at home, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, we get picked up at what you think is 2 in the morning. So it's about, what, 10 hours? No, 12. Yeah, 10 hours from now. So I'm going to, I don't know, I might do a bit more work. We shall see. So anyway, that's chapter 13 signed off. Sorry, chapter 24 signed off. So I'm going to dive into chapter 25. So once this is done, God, I've only got 18 to do. That's amazing. Okay. Chapter 25, Watched. Oh, actually, let me just shove some word counts into my spreadsheet. Do it. I'm going to. Right, let's recent. We'll have Empress. So, what chapters have I signed? Oh, God, I need to get loads of stuff. So, chapter 22. Is now 2848. So that actually went down when I edited it, not by much. 2848. Chapter 23 is 6789. That's easy to remember. And chapter 24 is 4798. So 4798. So I've now edited 135,000 words, which is, and the book is roughly 272. So I'm about halfway there in terms of word count, but I think my later chapters are a bit longer. So yeah, okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm obsessed with keeping a word count. I've no idea why. So chapter 25, Watched. Lord Farnborough sat in the garden room smoking a cigar. When he first started doing this, he would stand by the open window and try to ensure that the smoke went outside. After a few occasions, he moved to the seat closest to the window. Marianne had told him off several times. He now sat in the middle of the room in front of the television, using a saucer he had taken from the kitchen as an ashtray. He took a deep breath. Marianne would not be trying to exert their authority on him ever again. He exhaled slowly as he watched Oakley stomp out of the forest through the back gate and into the garden. Oakley entered the room via the sliding door. He was looking pale in the face and his eyes were red. When he saw Farnborough, he stopped. Marianne was one of the finest people that I've met in my life. His voice broke and he shut his eyes, pushing fresh tears down his cheeks. I did not join this group to murder innocent people. Farnborough eyed him with a tiny smile, which he wiped from his face when he realised how angry Oakley was. A person that would add nothing to the future of the human race. What was it? Could it have helped propagate the species? It was a pointless selection for survival. But I underestimated you, Mr. Oakley. What have you done with the body? Oakley shook his head. They're in the woods, buried under some logs. It will do until I can arrange something more respectful for them. Have you located Mackenzie? He's in Scotland, just south of Inverness. I traced Carruthers by his phone. Oh, that's interesting, because that's not true. He's north of Inverness, but okay. You're leaving now? Yes, spat Oakley. I'll be back as soon as it's done. What are you going to tell the ambassador? Oakley leaned down so that his face was inches from Farnborough's. I've done your vile work for you, Farnborough. You can explain to Ronnie why Marianne, pretty much a best friend right now, isn't coming back. As he spoke, he glanced through the window to see Ronnie rushing away from the house. Private Vickers was with her. Now, where are they going? Asked Farnborough. Find out for yourself, snapped Oakley. He strode towards the door that led to the kitchen. Check on the young lady first, Farnborough called after him, swearing. Oakley switched direction and headed for the garden. What's going on? Vickers asked as Ronnie strode across the lawn. I've been summoned to an interface with Idrisil, Ronnie replied. Haven't you noticed how much I've been eating? Her pace was brisk, and Vickers almost had to run to keep up with her. I've not put on that much weight this time, so hopefully it won't be a long conversation. I don't understand, cried Vickers as they dashed through the gate at the back of the garden into the woods. With a rush of footsteps, Oakley caught up with them. Is everything okay? He asked, slightly breathlessly. Farnborough wants to know what you're doing. The urged interface was not as extreme as it had been the first time, and as a result, Ronnie was able to slow down a little. I've been summoned to Idrisil. Why? I don't know. Ronnie pulled a face. Maybe she wants a chat. That's highly unlikely. Oakley looked worried. What's wrong with you anyway? Asked Ronnie. Have you been crying? Oakley gave her a withering look. Just having to deal with Farnborough. He forgets that this whole thing is about saving the human race. You coming to watch me interface? Asked Ronnie with a wry grin. I didn't know that's where you were going, snapped Oakley. Is Soldier Boy coming along to gawk at you as well? He has to. Oakley raised an eyebrow. Have you explained to him what's about to happen? Ronnie shook her head. Not really. Vickers looked between them. Then what is about to happen? You saw Lord Farnborough arrive yesterday. Sorry, you saw Lord Farnborough arrive. Now, didn't I say a couple of days ago? No, it was the press conference. It was a couple of days ago. That's fine. You saw Lord Farnborough arrive yesterday? It's the opposite of that, Oakley frowned. And then after that, you're going to have some time on your hands, unless you all want to get paid to take it in turns to stare at a tree. Ronnie thought that Oakley seemed unusually distracted. Eventually they came to a small shed next to the oak tree. Oakley walked on ahead and stood in front of the entrance to the shed, blocking it. I need to talk to you, Ronnie. It's urgent and it cannot wait. Can we trust Soldier Boy? He glanced nervously towards Vickers, who looked offended. Ronnie answered immediately. Yes, completely. Why? Oakley ran his fingers through his hair and looked worried. There are some things I need to tell you. This is the first. He opened the shed door and peered inside. It's safe, he said. You can come out. Ronnie looked baffled as a terrified and red-faced Marianne stepped cautiously out of the shed. Farnborough has a different agenda, Ronnie. And Oakley said. Farnborough has a different agenda, Ronnie, Oakley said, putting his arm around Marianne and giving them a reassuring squeeze. He ordered me to kill Mackenzie. He believes that the leaks are coming from him, or says he does. I'm not sure what he actually believes anymore. Now, I think I've got the wrong word. What he actually believes anymore, so there should be the what that should be italicised. I'm not sure what he actually believes anymore. He took a deep breath. Then looked back at the way they'd come, seeing nothing but an empty path. He lowered his voice anyway. Marianne heard him tell me to do that, and he found out, Ronnie. He knows they know. He has ordered me to kill Marianne too. He squeezed Marianne's shoulders again. I know there's surveillance in the house. Farnborough ordered Marianne to install it. I have no idea if he can operate it, but if he watched the recordings, he had to believe that I genuinely intended to kill them. He looked apologetic and squeezed Marianne again. To do that, Marianne had to believe that I was going to as well, at least until we got outside. They're pretty shaken up. Marianne glared at him angrily. Oakley shook his head. I'm so sorry. I thought you looked like you'd been crying, Ronnie muttered to himself. I'm sorry, Oakley. I underestimated you. Again. I helped him look like he'd been crying, said Marianne quietly. A glint of mirth crossed their terrified face. I used my knee. Ronnie blinked back furious tears and ran over to Marianne, throwing her arms around them in a tight embrace. Oakley stepped out of the way. Marianne was usually so strong, but they'd believed that Oakley was leading them out into the woods to be executed. Ronnie kissed them gently on the forehead. What the hell do we do now? She asked. Farnborough believes that Marianne is dead. Oakley turned to Vickers, who was listening intently. He must continue to believe that, Private. Vickers nodded. Sir, I was going to task Ursula with getting them out of here safely, but she's not going to be able to now. You need to protect them instead. Vickers nodded. Get them to my room, continued Oakley. Nobody else goes there. If you can safely tell Ursula what's happening, then do so. The house has surveillance in every room, apart from mine as far as I know, so you'll have to be very careful. I'm leaving for Scotland now. I won't be hurting a hair on Mackenzie's head, but I don't know how long I can stall Farnborough for. When he realises I'm not going to kill Mackenzie, I won't be allowed to return. Oakley looked pleadingly at Ronnie. Tell Idrisil everything that has happened here today. I can't believe that killing Mackenzie and Marianne is part of her plan. And I'm going to put... It actually says the plan, but I'm going to put her plan. Ronnie nodded. She unhooked herself from Marianne and looked around. I have to get ready now. She stepped into the shed and closed the door behind her. You need to wait out here until it's dark, said Vickers to Marianne. I will try and come and find you later. Get you into the house. Thank you, said Marianne. A moment later, Ronnie stepped out of the shed wearing only a towel. Oakley turned and faced the other way. Ronnie stepped over to the oak tree and raised a palm. She touched the tree, and after a few moments, the surface started to ripple beneath her fingers. Trying not to be aware of her audience, she dropped the towel and placed her other hand on the tree. It slowly pulled her in. It was a less terrifying experience than it had been the first time. Ronnie took a deep breath just before her torso was pulled inside so that she would not feel like she was suffocating for those last few seconds. Vickers watched with Marianne, an astonished look on the soldier's face. A few moments later, the surface of the tree hardened, and there was no evidence that Ronnie had ever been there. Marianne stepped forward and picked up the towel. I guess I'm going back in there now, they said, walking up to the shed door. Oakley ran over to them and grabbed their hand. I'm truly sorry for scaring you so badly, he said, giving them a tight hug and kissing them lightly on the cheek. It was the only way I could get you to relatives safely. I hope you see that, and I hope I'll get to see you again. He paused in embarrassment. You're magnificent. Marianne gave a watery smile and wiped a hand across the red eyes. I thought you were going to kill me, they said softly. I was preparing to die. Do you know what that feels like? Oakley looked down. Not until now, no. He paused, not sure he should tell them what Farnborough had said. The only way that I will survive all of this is if I kill Mackenzie. My past to the future will be rescinded if I don't. He shook his head angrily, and I can't kill him. So when the government failed to deliver Idrisil's directives, I'm going to die along with everybody else. He fixed them a direct look. So yes, I do know what it feels like. Marianne nodded, slowly, then hugged Oakley. Well, that's both of us. If he's ordered me dead, even if I get away from here, I won't be seeing that future either. They laid their head on his shoulder and closed their eyes. Find Mackenzie, make sure he's okay. They stared. Too many references of eyes, so I'm just going to remove one of them. Over head and his shoulder. Right, let me do that sentence again. Marianne nodded slowly and hugged Oakley. Why is my... Right. Marianne nodded slowly, then hugged Oakley. Well, that's both of us. If he's ordered me dead, even if I get away from here, I won't be seeing that future either. Over head and his shoulder. Find Mackenzie, make sure he's okay. They stared into Oakley's eyes. They'd never noticed how expressive they were, or how terrified he now looked. We can find somewhere safe, the three of us, until the end. Marianne let go. Oakley swallowed and nodded. I'm bloody well going to hold you to that. Marianne smiled forlornly and walked back to the shed. I'll come and find you later, miss, said Vickers. I need to report to the Lance Corporal. Don't call me miss, said Marianne quietly. Vickers turned red. I'm sorry. Marianne closed the door to closed the shed door behind them. Oakley turned to Vickers. Do you think they will permanently station one of you lot by the tree? Vickers shook his head. I don't know, sir. I need to leave. Please make sure that Marianne is safe. Vickers nodded. I will, sir. Oakley stared at the tree and then looked around him, wondering if he'd ever see the place again, before starting to walk back to the house. Farmer was waiting for Oakley at the entrance of the garden room. Well? Oakley glared at him, trying to keep the contempt from his face. Ronnie has been summoned to Idrisil for an interface. Farmer smiled and sucked on his cigar. So she's out of the way for a while. Good. There's a slight change of plan. Don't look hopeful. I'm just not sure I can rely on you to kill the boy. So you won't be driving up to Scotland by yourself. My driver, Woodsy, he'll take you up there. He'll be here first thing tomorrow morning. Oakley closed his eyes. Does he know what I'm going up there to do? Farmer shook his head. Not yet, but he's there to ensure you comply. He looked sideways at Oakley. I think I can trust you. I'm pleased that you were proactive enough to deal with Marianne. Oakley could feel his anger rising, but kept himself in check. This was not good. He had planned to stall. With an observer present, everything would be a lot more complicated. Ursula walked in at that moment. She glanced at Lord Farnborough and the cigar. I don't think Marianne will be very happy about you smoking that in here, dear. Farnborough beamed at her, and Oakley wondered exactly what he was going to say. You don't need to be concerned about that what that bossy little bugger thinks anymore, Ursula. I got rid of him. He was doing my head in. Ursula killed him for me. Ursula stepped forward, furious. Marianne was guaranteed a place in the new world. Not anymore, said Farnborough smugly. Ursula's face crumpled somewhat. I liked more Miss Marianne. She was honest and kind, unlike you, my lord. She looked across to Oakley. And you! Whatever, snapped Farnborough. I would like a cup of tea. Plenty of brown sugar, please. Cup of coffee. Plenty of brown sugar, please. Ursula blinked. I'm so sorry, but are you addressing me? I am not in your employ. If you want a coffee, you know where the kitchen is. I only came here to tell you that I sense Ronnie is interfaced, but you probably already know that. Ursula turned and walked out of the room. Oakley dashed after her. Ursula, I need to talk to you. The old lady turned, her face full of anger. I'm not inclined to talk to you, Mr. Oakley. She spat at him. Oakley turned and looked behind him. Farnborough had not joined them in the kitchen. He held his fingers to his lips and pulled out his mobile phone. I've got something I need to show you, he typed, showing Ursula the screen. Follow me. Ursula frowned, and Oakley gestured frantically for her to follow. She did, and he led her to his room above the garage. There was a PC on the desk opposite his bed, and he indicated that she should sit down on the chair in front of it. She shook her head angrily. Oakley turned it so he was hang on, I just need to alter that very slightly. Oakley turned the monitor that was facing her directly as he stood hovering, his fingers on the keyboard. We should be safe up here, he typed. I don't think there is surveillance in this room, but I can't be certain. I need to tell you some things. Lord Farnborough has ordered me to kill Marianne and Mackenzie. Ursula raised her hand to her mouth. What? She murmured. Oakley shook his head, put his finger to his lips and typed, He thinks I killed Marianne in the woods. I did not. Ursula sat heavily on the bed, tears of relief rolling down her face. They are hiding in the shed next to the interface tree. Private Vickers is aware and will bring them back here when it's dark. I will hide them in this room until I can get them away. Ursula nodded and leaned across so that her fingers reached the keyboard. Thank you, she typed. I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm going to lose the so, because I think she was only using one finger and it seemed to take forever for her words to appear on the screen. You can trust Vickers. What is Farnborough playing at? Why kill Mackenzie? I'm going to lose the word poor because I think you made a typo. That's very, very likely. Or I read it out wrong. That's also possible. Which bit? Sorry. Oh, I probably did. Hang on. Let me go back. I probably read it wrong. Ursula frowned and Oakley gestured frantically for her to follow. She didn't know. I don't even know what Ursula killed him for me. I don't even know. I'll read the whole paragraph again. Ursula followed, and Oakley gestured Ursula frowned, and Oakley gestured frantically for her to follow. She did so, and he led her to his room above the garage. There was a PC on the desk opposite his bed, and indicated that she should sit down on the chair in front of it. She shook her head angrily. Oakley turned the monitor so that it was facing her directly as he stood hovering his fingers over the keyboard. We should be safe up here, he typed. I don't think there is surveillance in this room. Oh, Lord Farnborough said it. Oh, God, that was ages ago. Hang on. Yes, I did read it wrong. It says Oakley killed him for me. I was just rushing fast, tired again, very jet lagged. We should be safe up here, he typed. I don't think there is surveillance in this room, but I can't be certain. I need to tell you some things. Lord Farnborough ordered me to kill Marianne and Mackenzie. Ursula raised her hand to her mouth. What? She murmured. Oakley shook his head, put his finger to his lips and typed, He thinks I killed Marianne in the woods. I did not. Ursula sat heavily on the bed, tears of relief rolling down her face. They are hiding in the shed next to the interface tree. Private Vickers is aware and will bring them back here when it's dark. I will hide them in this room until I can get them away. Ursula nodded and leaned across so that her fingers reached the keyboard. Thank you, she typed. I'm so sorry I doubted you. She was only using one finger and it seemed to take forever for her words to appear on the screen. You can trust Vickers. What is Farnborough playing at? Why kill poor Mackenzie? He thinks Mackenzie is the source of the leaks. Ursula shook her head. That is unlikely. And again, I'm just thinking if she's typing it and types slowly, she'd probably use less words. So I'm just going to put unlikely. Unlikely, she typed. What are you going to do? I was going to pretend to try and find Mackenzie, but Lord Farnborough does not trust me to do it. He's sending his driver with me. Oakley looked across at her, then deleted all of the messages from the screen. Woods, Ursula mouthed at him. He nodded, then continued to type. Woods will be under orders to make sure that I comply. Oakley shook his head and ran his fingers through his hair. I don't know what to do. I will not harm Mackenzie. He paused before typing the next sentence. All I can do is run. He shook his head and looked gloomily across at Ursula. I won't be able to return. Now, I've greatly underestimated you. That I'm pretty sure I've used underestimated as well with Ronnie. Oh, now, is that lazy writing? Or because Ronnie and Ursula are the same person, does that actually make more sense? There's a point of stage. I'm going to say that congrat. Because they're the same person, effectively, one's a lot older, but they're the same pattern of the same mental thought processes, it kind of figures they might use the same words. So I've used the word underestimated twice. Once Ursula saying she underestimated, once Ronnie saying she underestimated Oakley, and then later Ursula saying, I underestimated you. And there's a side of me that would think, no, it's a repetition, I ought to get rid of it. But then because they are meant to be effectively a different iteration of the same being, it would make more sense. Good, yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, that kind of... It feels more like a deliberate repetition rather than just lazy choice of words. Yeah. Ursula looked up and walked over to Oakley, patting his shoulder. I have greatly underestimated you, Mr. Oakley, and for that I'm sorry. I'm just going to just look at exactly what Ronnie says and maybe... I'm going to put the greatly in again, so it is deliberate. Greatly underestimated you again. Yeah. Oakley shook his head. Ursula stood up and walked over to Oakley, patting his shoulder. I have greatly underestimated you, Mr. Oakley, and for that I'm sorry, she said. Oakley shook his head frantically and pointed at the keyboard. I believe in what we are doing, he typed. I know people will hate the new rules, but if it means that we are preserved as a species, then it will have been worth it. It never crossed my mind that I'll be asked to kill unless it were to protect someone here. Mackenzie is what he is because we let him down. He shrugged. None of this makes sense. I don't believe that the world will meet Idrisil's directives. The trees will do what they threaten to do, and if I don't kill Mackenzie, Farnborough will prevent me from being one of the survivors. Ursula nodded and spoke. Idrisil will bring Ragnarok to the world. Oakley shook his head at her, his eyes wide, but she continued. The ancient myth says there will only be 2 human survivors, and it's almost right. In the reality... Hang on. It's page 8. And it's almost right. There will be 2 types of human survivor, the Yokunda and the Opus. I am Opus, the necessary. So are you, and I'm starting to realise now quite how necessary you are. Farnborough is also designated Opus. Let's lose the as. Oakley breathed out heavily. If Farnborough was listening, the cat was now out of the bag. He walked to the radio beside his bed and turned it on. He cranked up the volume, and some classical music started blasting out of it. But the Opus don't have to be the opposite of the Yokunda, do they? Necessary, yes, but not evil. Oakley shook his head. If he'd told me to bring Mackenzie back here, to effectively keep him prisoner until whatever plays out, then I wouldn't have liked it, but I would have understood it, and done it. He paused for breath. Who else is designated Opus? Do you know that? Ursula shook her head. That is one of Lord Farnborough's functions. He led the team that selected the Opus, and when the time is near, the Skuld will procure them, the ones that are not already in place within Arbor Associates, as they will procure the Yokunda. Oakley raised his eyes. So he will rule the new world with people as vile and inhumane as he is. Oakley shook his head. That settles it. I don't even want to be part of that. Let's italicise the want. I don't even want to be part of that. I will just have to hope, and that needs to have a contraction. I'll just have to hope that humanity can get its act together enough to avoid a Ragnarok. He stood. I won't be able to say goodbye tomorrow, Ursula. I will have to depart as I'm doing. I'm going on any other job for his lordship. So goodbye, and thank you for being so wise and honest. I hope there are more people like you in the new world. It's going to need them. Oakley smiled and gave Oakley a brief hug. I'm sorry that it has to end this way, Oakley. What will you do? Find Carruthers, if I can. Protect him, Mackenzie, and Marianne. Make sure if the worst comes to the worst, they survive. Well, as long as any of us can, at any rate. Oakley sat in his office brooding that evening. He was so caught up in his thoughts that he forgot to watch the statement made by the Prime Minister. He remembered at 8:30 and watched the video online. It was exactly as Carl Tuck had predicted. The Prime Minister announced that scientists around the world had discovered a noticeable drop in oxygen levels around the planet. It was why the trees were behaving like it was autumn, and all the governments had concluded that it was a direct result of overpopulation and pollution. The planet had reached the threshold of life it could support, she said, and as a result, the very difficult decisions had to be made. She knew they would be unpopular, and as a result had invoked the Civil Contingencies Act, which gave the government the powers they needed across the country to prevent chaos. She indicated that she would not go as far as curfews and employing the armed forces on the streets if people behaved, but would not hesitate to do so if it became necessary. This is Theresa May, by the way, because it's sort of set at a time that she was Prime Minister, although in this version of reality, something bigger than Brexit has obviously come up. She ordered all airlines to stop flying out of the country immediately and put plans in place for repatriation flights. She ordered all workplaces to encourage people to work from home. She doubled the price for petrol and meat, with more rises to come over the following weeks. It was less than an hour after the announcements. The news showed people storming supermarkets, trying to buy things before they had the chance to implement the price rises. Customers were emptying the shelves of other products too. Some petrol stations with more proactive... I'm trying to remember. I think I wrote this before the pandemic, this bit. She ordered all airlines to... No. It was less than an hour after the announcements. The news showed people storming supermarkets trying to buy things before they had a chance to implement the price rises. Customers were emptying the shelves of other products too. Some petrol stations with more proactive head offices had managed to shut their pumps long enough to do the relevant price increases, and in many cases there'd been attacks on petrol station staff. Some forecourts had shut down as a precaution because people were driving off without paying. As Oakley watched, a breaking news story flashed across the screen. Various airlines had put out a joint press statement saying that curbing flights was illegal. Can I put British Airways and Virgin had put out a Virgin Atlantic? Yes, I'm going to name the main British airlines. I'm going to... British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, Ryanair and EasyJet. As Oakley watched, a breaking news story flashed across the screen. British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, Ryanair and EasyJet had put out a joint press statement saying that curbing flights was illegal and they would be running as normal throughout the night and the next day. Ursula walked in. "Are you watching the news?" she asked. "I forgot to watch the Prime Minister's statement," Oakley admitted, "but I'm watching the shit hit the fan live on the BBC. Have you seen what's happening in Washington?" No. Oakley had forgotten that half of the planet had been delivered similar news. "A large number of people are massing outside the White House saying these measures are unconstitutional," said Ursula, "and calling for Americans to take up arms against a corrupt federal government. They're saying this is what the Second Amendment was written for." There was a knock on the door and Private Vickers walked in. He was not carrying his gun. He nodded to Ursula, slipped a piece of paper onto the desk, then turned and left. Oakley opened it cautiously. In tiny, neat writing in one corner of the paper were the words, "Marianne is safely in your quarters." Oakley showed it to Ursula very quickly, then dropped it into the shredder. The newsfeed cut to a live video from outside the White House. There were already thousands of people. This would have been during Trump 1 as well. There were already thousands of people massing, many with placards saying things like, "Not my president," and "This is not what we voted for." A breaking news story flashed up on the screen. A supermarket worker trying to fill shelves with meat had been violently shoved out of the way by people desperate to get to the stock. She'd hit her head on the floor as she fell and then been trampled on and was now in hospital fighting for her life. A spokesperson from one of the retailers came on and said they were considering closing all 24-hour stores overnight. The reports of queues at petrol stations stretching for a couple of miles, as well as cars blocking each other inside supermarket car parks as they became full. Then another breaking news story came up on the ticker at the bottom of the screen. The Chancellor was making an emergency budget statement tomorrow. Oakley turned off the monitor in disgust. "And this is just the beginning. What hope have we got?" Ursula shook his head. "The government have to manage it. It should have been obvious that this was going to happen." Oakley shook his head. "At this rate, there'll be martial law, probably before breakfast." Farnborough sat smoking a cigar in the garden room. He had the television on, which was showing the live protest from Washington. He had a tablet in his hands, one of the ones Marianne had set up to enable easy remote access to all of the security and surveillance systems in the house. Taking another drawer from his cigar, he swiped from the audio tab to the CCTV screen and clicked the button for saved recordings. Looking over his shoulder, he made sure that there was nobody in the room with him and that the doors to the kitchen were closed before pressing play on a recording marked Oakley 1. The video showed Ursula and Oakley sitting in front of the computer screen in his room. Farnborough expanded the image so the picture... Hang on, that's just slightly badly worded. Farnborough expanded the image so that the words on the monitor filled his screen. He thinks I killed Marion in the woods. I did not. They are hiding in the shed next to the interface tree. Private Vickers is aware and will bring them back when it's dark. I will hide them in this room until I can. I'll hide them in this room until I can get away. Oakley sucked on his cigar. Farnborough sucked on his cigar again before exhaling the thick smoke. No, you won't, Mr. Oakley, he said quietly. No, you bloody won't. Dun dun dun! So that was all originally one chapter. A very, very long chapter. Right, let me just run it through Grammarly again. And then how long have I been streaming? I can't tell. I need to go onto another screen. So I shall do the Grammarly first. That'll probably do me for today. I'm going to have a 2-minute comfort break. Actually, yes, I'm going to do a 2-minute comfort break now. And then I shall be back to do the Grammarly on that, and then do today's podcast. So bear with me one moment. Right, I'm back. Let me do screen view, typing view. Sorry. Right, so I've saved that. So now I need to drag that into Grammarly. Okay. Welcome back. Oh, it was a long time. How long let me just have a quick look at this screen, bear with me. How long have I been streaming for? Oh, an hour and a half. So, oh, by the way, I've got another recording session. Oh, brilliant. Oh, I'm pleased. I am pleased. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see at what point you can start it when you have enough material to actually start editing some bits together, because I would love to hear an excerpt. I really would. See how it all sort of comes together. Right, let me do this. So, what says it? I'm not sure what he actually believes anymore, so that's fine. That word isn't unnecessary. Otis out of the way. Marion was usually strong, but they believed, but they had. No, so that's a past tense. That's it plays out, plays out. No, that's deliberate. AI doesn't. Oh God, is that it? God. Okay, fine. Oh, and I saw on your socials about the thing on September the 27th. I would love to come. Chances are I'm going to be working, but I will bear it in mind. I mean, it might sell out by the time I know I can come. So my original plan was to take unpaid leave in September, but I kind of did it on impulse when they offered it for July. Then vaguely regretted it because I thought, oh yeah, but the schools break up. And then I looked, and the schools don't break up till like the 23rd of July. So actually, I could do some stuff early July, go away, and actually not have loads of screaming kids running around. So I think that's going to be my plan. Okay. Well, if I do come, I mean, I won't be able to tell you until much closer to the time. But if I do come, I'll run you up there because it will be slightly quicker for you. I might let you catch the train to Long Buckby, save having to go that way 40 minutes and then that way 40 minutes. But I'll run you home afterwards. Yeah, I might ask you to meet me at Long Buckby train station, just to knock an hour and 20 off my driving. But then I'll run you home at the end if I do that, obviously. So I think Long Buckby's on. I'm pretty sure Long Buckby's on that line. So yeah, well, I mean, I won't know until. They will probably offer unpaid leave. You've never gone off at Long Buckby? Yeah, it's not very exciting. Yes, well, it's very much a place where people get on the train, and the only people who get off it are people who live there. It's the closest railway station to Daventry, so I use it occasionally. But yeah, right. Anyway, did I download that? Let me download. Oh, have I? Let me just check. Yeah. Right, so let me just open this up. All copy. Let's pop it into here to paste it. All paste. Oh, was that one? Okay. Oh, the one. Yes, I remember. Okay, cool. Well, I just find. Oh, that makes more sense. Okay, that does make more sense. Yeah, it'd be interesting to chat with Chris again as well, because I genuinely enjoyed his books. And if he's going to be there selling stuff, I might even try some of his others if I'm able to meet him and he's selling stuff. Because I'd be willing to try. Well, I don't know. We'll just see what's available. Maybe Avenue Cars, or this recent one that ties a lot of stuff together, apparently. Yeah, is that the witchy one? The witch at the end of the well, or whatever it's called. Yeah. I'd make a great salesperson, wouldn't I? Right. What am I trying to do? Oh yes, I want to open that back up, and I want to. Format it. There we go. And magic. So, chapter 25 is done. Let me just close it. Let me delete those. Let me drag it into the correct folder. Well, that ain't bad, is it? I mean, I set myself a target of 10 chapters this month because I thought, well, I'm working a lot. Maybe I'm not going to have time to get stuff done. And it's the 7th and I'm already halfway through. So, how big's chapter 26? I might do a screen run through of chapter 26. How does this one? Is this quite a long one? Yes, it's quite a long one, isn't it? God, I don't have to finish anything now. I'm ahead of the schedule I set myself. Do it. Yeah, I'm ahead of the schedule I set myself. So I might as well. Oh, and this is the end of book 3. Well, not book 3, but the 3rd major segment, actually. Right. Okay. Chapter 26. Shall I do the podcast first or do this now? I'll do this. And then when I stop, I'll do the podcast. Right. Chapter 26, Agendas. Oakley spent that night tossing and turning whilst he attempted to sleep. This was partially because his brain was overactive, but mainly because he was trying to sleep on a tiny sofa in the corner of his room. Vickers had kept his word and smuggled Marianne up there last night. Oakley had offered them the bed and told them he was unable to sneak out. And told him he was unable to sneak them out of the house to the car as per her original plan, because Farnborough was sending Woods with him to deal with Mackenzie. Oakley woke at 7 and went down to the kitchen where he made himself some toast and an instant coffee. Ursula was already awake and having a cup of tea. She gave him a sympathetic smile. "Have you seen the news this morning?" she asked in a sombre tone as he took his first sip. Oakley nodded. Oakley shook his head. "Have they declared martial law?" "Not here, but they have in some American states. There was an incident last night. The protest outside the White House became unruly. People started turning up with guns. Then some bright spark decided to try and rush the gates. The military opened fire. They don't have a death toll yet, but there are thousands injured. The media are already calling it the Washington Massacre." Oakley took another sip of his instant coffee and decided he did not like the taste. It was far inferior to the coffee Marianne made. He put the cup down. "Is this it, Marianne? Is this it, Ursula?" he asked. "Is this the end of life as we know it?" Ursula shook her head and took a delicate sip from a teacup. "It feels like the beginning of the end, doesn't it?" Oakley looked at his watch. "Mr. Woods will be here soon. I'm going to shave. I'll be down when I'm done." Ursula nodded and took another sip from her tea. Oakley walked quietly up the stairs. He had made a point of clearing Marianne's room last night and put their clothing in one of the storage cupboards at the top of the stairs outside the entrance to his room. He walked in to find Marianne was sitting up in bed. "Is it safe to get clothes out of the cupboard?" they asked. I'll wait at the bottom of the stairs whilst you do it, just in case," said Oakley. He exited the room and walked past the storage cupboards and down the stairs. Marianne, in a t-shirt and underwear, followed him out and opened the cupboard. Their clothes were in... The clothes were in carrier bags. They went through them quickly until they found what they wanted. Oakley had also emptied their bathroom, and they discovered their toothbrush and a towel. They glanced through the door to where Oakley was standing at the bottom of the flight of steps. He gave them a thumbs up, then darted back into the room, through it and into the bathroom at the far end. Moment. Hang on. To his room, then it's obvious we're talking about Marianne. Through it and into the bathroom at the far end. A moment later, Oakley's phone started to ring. "Just to let you know, the centre on the gate has let Mr. Woods and his car come in." It was Ursula. "Thank you," said Oakley. "I'll be down in a moment." Ursula stood near the front door waiting for Wood's car to pull up so that she could let him in. She heard loud footsteps coming from the stairs behind her. Farmer grunted a greeting at her. "Is that Woodsy?" "It is," affirmed Ursula. She could see that the car had stopped at the foot of the steps. Farnborough had one of his vile cigars in his hand, although he had not got as far as lighting it yet. Through the glass, they watched as a figure walked up the steps. Ursula opened the door before he could open the bell. Wood stepped in. Ursula noticed that he was limping slightly. "Woodsy!" yelled Farnborough. "Great to see you, old chap." He noticed the limp. "What have you done to yourself?" "Sporting injury," Woods said with a slight smile. "Always knew that being healthy was bad for it." Wasn't. He was one of the people that tried to kill Mackenzie earlier. That's never confirmed in the storyline, but that is. Woods was up there. Follow me into the study. I'll brief you on what the pair of you will be doing for the next few days. Farnborough turned to Ursula. "I know you're not here to do Marianne's job, and I will replace him as soon as I can. But is there any chance you can rustle up a pot of tea and some biscuits for me and Woodsy? And knock before you come into the study, please." Ursula glared at him. She wished that she was younger and stronger and could punch him directly in the face. "Of course, young man," she forced herself to say, in what looked like good grace. Sounded would be better. Sounded like good grace. "English breakfast?" "Perfect," beamed Farnborough, ushering Woods into the study, slamming the door behind him. Ursula walked slowly to the kitchen. She would do as is asked, but she was not going to rush. Instead of heading for the kettle, she walked over to the snug and stood at the window that overlooked the front of the house. Woods had parked neatly by the steps leading up to the front door. The car was a large hatchback with blacked-out windows. She was about to turn away and make the tea when the front passenger door of the car opened. A man stepped out, and Oakley did a double take. It was Woods, or someone who looked exactly like him anyway. The only difference was that he did not seem to be limping. The other Woods walked over to the door that led directly to the stairs up to Oakley's room, but it was locked. I'm going to put it was locked. And discovered that it was locked. Swearing, the man tried the closest garage door. When that did not open either, he walked to the far end of the garage and round the back of the building. Ursula rushed from the snug to the utility kitchen. There was a door leading outside from here as well. From there. This room as well. And Woods would be here at any moment. She pulled out her phone and found the security app. Trying to call Mariana Chona, she looked through some menus until she found the one she wanted. Smiling grimly, she pressed a button and every exterior door to the house locked simultaneously. From another screen, she unlocked the door the Woods had tried first. She put the phone into a pocket, not noticing the warning message that the garden room door had not locked because it was open. She walked out towards the car, shutting the door behind her. She crept carefully over to the front passenger door and tried it. It was unlocked. She looked inside. There was a folder in the side pocket of the door, which she glanced through. It contained some photographs, one of Mackenzie, one of Carruthers, one of Oakley, and one of Marianne. Ursula shook her head and tried the glove box. It took her a moment to work out how to open it, but when she did, she took a deep breath. There was a revolver in the glove box. She picked it up gingerly and checked the magazine. It was loaded. Private Vickers stood next to the interface tree in the woods behind the house. It was cold outside and he was bored. Barrera, who had done the overnight duty, had put a chair in front of the shed and left it there for Vickers to use. Although it was early May, it felt like autumn. Many leaves were falling from the trees now, leaves that were at most a couple of weeks old. I'm going to just put many, a considerable number of leaves were falling from the trees now, leaves that were at most a couple of weeks old. Vickers was starting to understand that all of this was directly linked to the young woman who was, impossibly, inside the tree in front of him. There was a gust of wind and more leaves fell from the tree above his head. The more he looked, the more he realised that a disproportionate number were falling from the great oak that he was watching. Perhaps this was normal when the tree was occupied, he reasoned. The wind picked up a little, and more foliage fell around him. Not only that, he was now aware of a creaking sound, the branches above him groaning as though they were trying to survive in a hurricane, not a slight breeze. Vickers stepped back, aware that the noises, because there were several of them now, seemed to be coming from directly above him. He had not noticed this much of a din coming from the trees, even when several Skald had stepped out of the forest around him. He was about to call in his concerns when there was an enormous creaking and crashing sound. He looked up and did not have time to get out of the way as a huge limb from the tree came crashing down to the ground. One of the branches from it hit him on the head, cutting him. He fell to the forest floor and could hear more similar noises from above him. Could hear more creaks and groans coming from above him. He opened his eyes and brushed his face with a hand that came away sticky with blood. Cursing, he oriented himself and was able to crawl out of the way before another branch came crashing down from the tree. He flung himself away, then sat with his back to another tree on the far side of the clearing, watching as the old oak started to fall apart. One of the limbs that had landed close to him looked surprisingly dry and brittle. The creaking sounds were becoming louder and more intense. There were no leaves left on the oak now, and many great limbs had fallen, some being supported by others beneath them that had not yet given away. He looked at the main trunk and could see that it was rippling. The creaking noises quietened noticeably, and when Vickers looked back to the tree, he could see that the point where Ron had entered was now bulging. Wiping the blood from his eyes a second time, Vickers crawled over to the shed, which which now had a large branch resting on its roof, and grabbed the towel Ronnie had used to cover her modesty the previous day. He turned back and could see a vaguely human shape in the in the bulge, accompanied by a scream. He rushed over the tree just as Ronnie was ejected from it. She was covered in sap and emaciated. Her skin was stretched over her bones so thinly that she looked like she'd been starved for months. The surface of the tree had not opened completely, and she had some deep cuts on her ribs where they had been gouged on the bark as she'd been forced out. The tree did not reform as it had yesterday. There was still a large human-shaped hole in the trunk, and the entire tree was turning a nasty shade of grey. Vickers dashed over to Ronnie. She was obviously in pain. As he did so, another branch collapsed from above, narrowly missing them both. Ronnie was screaming and not making any eye contact. He threw the towel around her as best he could and picked her up. She did not seem to weigh anything. His gun was on the floor where he had originally been struck by the falling branch, but that did not seem important at the moment. He turned and ran, stumbling towards the house, half blinded with blood, with Ronnie's inert form in his arms. Oakley sat on the bed, waiting for Marianne to finish in the bathroom. He was about to knock and ask them politely to hurry up when the door leading to the stairwell opened and Woods stepped into the room. Oakley's eyes widened in surprise, and he tried not to panic. "Mr. Woods," he said calmly, "I hear we'll be working together today." The man's face was impassive, and when he took his hand out of his pocket, it contained a pistol. "There has been a change of plan," said Woods. He gestured the bathroom door before pointing the weapon squarely at it. "Who's in there?" Oakley knew that the game was up. "Marianne," he replied. "I'm not going to do much more because I'm tiring." Oakley knew that the game was up. "Marianne," he replied quietly. Wood smiled. "That makes my day feel like so much less effort. Open the door." Oakley shook his head. "They've done nothing wrong. Do what you must to me, but leave them alone." Wood shook his head. "Open the door now." Before either of them could do anything, the door swung open and Marianne stepped out. They were wearing a towel, and as soon as they let go of the door, they raised their hands above their head. Their eyes were red. "I'm sorry," said Oakley simply. He moved over to stand next to them. Wood smiled and pointed the gun at one, then the other. He raised it and levelled it at Oakley's head before swinging it across and pointing it to Marianne's. "The only thing I have to decide," said Woods, laughing lightly as though he was telling a joke, "is who gets to see the other one die." He raised his gun and pointed at Oakley again. "You first, I think. I'll take my time with that." Marianne closed their eyes and felt Oakley's arm around their shoulder. They heard a shot. It was deafening at such close range. They felt Oakley's arm leave them, but kept their eyes closed. "Just get it over with," they breathed. They heard a voice that they'd not been expecting. "Open your eyes." It was Oakley. "You're perfectly safe, at least for the moment." Marianne opened their eyes to see Oakley crouched over the body of Woods. He had taken the pistol from his hand. Ursula was standing by the door to the stairs, shaking. On the floor by her right side was another gun. "They're going to be expecting 2 shots," said Oakley. "Marianne, get dressed. Really bloody quickly." Marianne dashed back into the bathroom. Oakley stood up and fired another bullet into Woods before picking up the other gun from next to Ursula's feet. A second later, 2 soldiers burst up the stairs, both carrying rifles. "The situation is contained," Oakley said to them. "This man came to kill me." "It's not contained," said Ursula breathlessly. "There's another one with Lord Farnborough in the study. Another one of Farnborough's armed cronies. Another Woods." Oakley looked at her. "What?" He brushed the thought away. "Lord Farnborough may also be in danger," he'd said. "Lord Farnborough may also be in danger," he bluffed, turning to the soldiers. "Get to the office and make sure he's safe." The soldiers ran out. Marianne came out of the room. Oakley threw some keys to them and handed them Ursula's gun. "This is our chance to get out of here. Do you know how to use this?" Marianne nodded. "I'd rather not, though. I'd rather you didn't need to either. Get the car out. The Mini. I'll be down in a second." Marianne nodded and dashed down the stairs. "I'm going to have to go," Ursula said Oakley. When she did not respond, he took her face in his hands. "Are you going to be all right?" Ursula blinked her red-rimmed eyes and nodded. "I think so. Sorry, I've never had to do anything like that before." She took a deep breath and pulled his hands away. "Of course you must leave, dear. I will be perfectly fine." Oakley could hear shouting come from the study downstairs. He hugged the old lady. "I'm going to try and find Carruthers. I'll keep him and Mackenzie safe. Marianne too, obviously." There was more yelling from the office, followed by shots. "I'd better go. We have a tiny window of opportunity." He could hear a raised voice coming from the kitchen. "I need help!" shouted a desperate voice. "That's young Mr. Vickers," claimed Ursula. "I have to go," said Oakley. They headed down the stairs together, Oakley turning into the garage. The door was open and Marianne was climbing into the car. "Come on!" they shouted. Ursula burst into the kitchen to see a blood-soaked Vickers crouching over the obscenely thin form of Ronnie. He was blowing into her mouth. "I don't understand what's happened," he yelled. "She's not breathing." Ursula stared down at Ronnie wide-eyed. That shouldn't happen. I don't understand. Private grinning ran into the room and took in the scene in front of him. What's happening, Private? Ronnie suddenly sat up, almost knocking Vickers out of the way. Her eyes fixed on Ursula and spoke. Lord Farnborough is the traitor. He is the one who's been giving the Red Victors information. He wants to accelerate Ragnarok. He must be stopped. She fell back exhausted and banged her head on the floor. Greening looked at Ursula. Where's Farnborough? In the study. I think 2 of your men are in there trying to disarm his driver, Woods, she said. 2 more soldiers ran into the room. Barrera, yelled Grinning. Take Lord Farnborough into custody. He's in the study. Ursula lowered herself down and examined Ronnie. She was now breathing but unconscious. Ursula looked up to Greening. Captain, the ambassador needs immediate medical attention. I'm going to put requires because that's what I nearly said. The ambassador requires immediate medical attention. Barrera ran into the kitchen. Through the door, Ursula could see that more than a dozen armed soldiers had entered the hall. Lord Farnborough and his driver are gone, sir. Rain and Stanton are dead. They heard the car start at the front of the house. With a screech of tyres, it shot towards the front gates. Moments later, the Mini accelerated out of the garage and tore after it. Ursula's phone rang. Ursula, what the hell is going on? It was Oakley. Ronnie's here. Lord Farnborough is our mole. Captain Greening is trying to arrest him. What? The Mini screeched to a halt just inside the woods at the front of the house. We can stop him. Marianne can revoke his access to the gate control. Inside the car, Oakley passed Marianne the phone. Can you lock Farnborough out of the security system? I should be able to. Greening heard the response and grabbed his radio. All units to the main gate. Lord Farnborough must be detained. He's with his driver. Both are armed and dangerous. Well, they could all hear Oakley questioning Marianne over the phone line. I'm too late, they replied. The gate's opening. He's locked me out. Some shots could be heard in the distance. This is Greening. The captain shouted into his radio. What's happening? This is Yin at the main gate, sir, was the response. Private Shah is down. Now I've got another character. Haven't I got another Shah later? I might have to change his name. Let's just check that. It's not meant to be a main character or anything. Let me just... Eats popcorn gripped. Yeah, it's a bit of a sort of exciting-y moment. Sorry, but now I need to find out if I've already got another character called Shah. Let me just find Shah. Shavar! It's Shavar, not Shah. So that's fine, I don't have to change it. Sorry. Let me just go back to it then. This is Yin at the main gate, sir, was the response. Private Shah is down. The car containing Farnborough and his driver has left. He's closed the gates behind him. I can't access the gate controls, Marianne shouted down the phone. And I'm sorry. Land Rover has arrived at the gates, came the report over the radio. Farnborough's car is heading southeast, but we are not able to pursue. Fuck it! Yelled Greening. He looked down at Ronnie lying unconscious on the floor. Get that gate open, and I need medical support in the kitchen. He barked into the radio. The ambassador is down. Top priority. Ronnie drew another slow breath. Ursula shook her head. And another, my dear. Keep breathing. You can do it. Greening looked across at Vickers, noticing the blood on his head and uniform. Are you all right, lad? Vickers nodded. I'll live, sir. Ursula stood, walking over to the snug, and watched the Mini drive back into the courtyard. It stopped where Woods had initially parked his car, and Marianne and Oakley got out. They ran up the stairs. Marianne dashed into the office, and Oakley ran into the kitchen. He looked down at Ronnie and the blood-soaked Vickers. What the hell happened? I'm only guessing, said Ursula, but I think Idrisil sped up the communication to let Ronnie know about Farnborough's treachery. It is risky. The human can die of malnutrition, and it kills the interface tree. Vickers was kneeling by Ronnie, squeezing his hand. He nodded. The tree fell apart around me. That's what caused this. He gestured to the blood dripping from his wounded scalp. Where is that doctor? Ursula asked urgently. Where is that doctor? Ursula asked urgently. Vickers looked through the double doors to the activity in the hall. He's coming now. A pair of men into the room. The doctor looked down at the prone form on the ground. That's the ambassador, exclaimed. What happened? How the hell has she lost so much weight? We can explain later, said Ursula. She needs sugars. Get her to the bedroom, said the medic. Ward, go and get me a TPN feeding tube, anaesthetic, and a bag of Intralipid 20. I see I did a bit of research there. Don't worry, he does get a name. He is Dr. Matthews, named after, Doc Matthews, named after a character from, I'm such a sad man, I named him after a character. There's a wonderful 1950s radio drama called Lost in Space. It was the last radio programme that got higher ratings than a TV show. It was the last time radio was bigger than television, and it was called Lost in Space. And it's these, and the doctor on board that little spaceship was called Doc Matthews. So this is Doc Matthews, and it's a deliberate Lost in Space reference. Not Lost in Space, Journey into Space. Get her to the bedroom, said the medic. Ward, go and get me a TPN feeding tube, anaesthetic, and a bag of Intralipid 20. We'll be in the front bedroom upstairs. On the double, man! Oakley looked down at Ronnie. Is she going to be okay? I hope so, said Ursula. A soldier walked in carrying a stretcher and lay it down next to Ronnie. The doctor gestured to Vickers. "Help me with her." Together they lifted her onto the stretcher. Vickers draped the towel over her and helped the doctor to lift her. Marianne walked in, their eyes widened as the stretcher was carried past them to the hall. "Is that Ronnie?" "I'm afraid so," said Oakley. Marianne closed her eyes and staggered into the worktop. Oakley stepped forward to help, but Marianne shook their head, stood up straight and grabbed onto the nearby work surface for support. "The gates are back under our control," they said. "I've let the army vehicle out. They're following Farnborough and Woods." "I thought there was a unit outside," snapped Oakley. "I thought you lot were supposed to be the visible part of the operation." "Redeployed," snapped Greening. "Doctor needs a small D?" Ugh, let me have a look. I'm just going to search for it. There's probably lots of them. Again, that's because of Doctor Who, that is. Because I think of the Doctor as a name of a character, and you're absolutely right, in this case it isn't. Let me just... Yep. There's going to be millions of these. Well, not millions, but... Right. Okay, so that's all fine. Okay. "I thought there was a unit outside," snapped Oakley. "I thought you were supposed to be the visible part of the operation." "Redeployed," snapped Groening, "due to the unrest." "Was anybody going to tell me?" "You didn't need to know," replied Greening coldly. "Well, we won't be catching up with them now. They've got too much of a head start," said Oakley angrily. "They'll be at the village by now. There are at least 3 routes out of there. You won't find them unless you're exceptionally lucky." Now, does that mean really? Well, we won't be catching up with them now. Let's lose them now. "Too much has Oakley angrily. They'll be at the village. There are at least 3 routes of there. There are at least 3 routes out of there. You won't find them unless you're exceptionally lucky." Ursula moved over and stood next to Marianne. "We need to know what information Idrissa thought was so important she risked Ronnie's life as well as her own to get it to us," she said. "That might take some time. I'll wait upstairs with her." I'm going to lose that might take some time. "I'm going to report it," said Oakley. "There are people above me in Arbor Associates that aren't Lord Farnborough. I just hope they're not in on it as well. I'll speak to Cockerell Wright too." He left the kitchen, his mobile phone already at his ear. "Can I come with you to check on Ronnie?" asked Marianne. "Of course you can," replied Ursula. They walked into the hall together and started up the stairs. Greening knocked on the study door. "Come in," called Oakley. Greening entered the room. "I've just had formal notification from the Minister that you are now in charge of this facility, Mr. Oakley. We lost Farnborough, I'm afraid. What exactly is going on? Why are 2 of my men dead?" Oakley shook his head. "I have no idea. I suspect that Ronnie will be able to tell us if and when she regains consciousness." Greening walked over to the seat in front of the desk. "May I sit?" Oakley nodded, and Greening pulled the chair forward and sat down. "I've spoken to Doc Matthews. He believes the ambassador should be in hospital. There is only a certain amount of care he can provide here." "Not a good idea," declared Oakley. Greening shook his head. "Given what has happened today, I agree. We can bring people in if need be." "How is she?" "No sign of consciousness yet. Your man Vickers did a good job." Greening smiled. "He's a good lad. Doc Matthews said that if it wasn't for him, she would have died, and her message would not have got to us. Marianne and I could be dead, and Lord Farnborough would still be manipulating events." The body recovered from your quarters looks like the same man that shot Rain and Stanton. Shah is badly injured, but should pull through. Who are they?" "I've known Woods for a few years. I did not know there was more than one of him," stated Oakley. Ursula walked into the study and heard the end of the conversation. "I have a theory," she said. "I suspect Ronnie will be able to confirm it when she wakes up." Oakley nodded. "Go on then, what's your theory?" "Well, we know that Farnborough is an Auror. We believe that he had no Veroandi. What if Woods are Farnborough's Veroandi?" Oakley tapped some keys on the keyboard of the computer on his desk, then used the mouse to open 2 photographs side by side. "Those are the pictures from the portfolio I produced for Captain Greening here to inform him who has access to this facility." He shook his head and gave a grim smile. "I never made the connection. Woods usually wears glasses and spends a lot of time working out. But look." He turned the monitor around and showed Ursula and Greening the pictures. "Okay, so the hair is very different, but look at the eyes, the shape of the nose and head." Greening studied the picture. "They could be father and son." Oakley smiled. "Not father and son, Captain. They're the same man." "Well done, Ursula. I think you're right. But if there's 2, could there be more?" "Usually Idrissa only produces 1 Veroandi, but..." Oakley nodded and picked up the phone. "I think that I'd better let someone know." So that's like there being two Ronnies or two Mackenzies, basically. In fact, it turns out, as we discovered later on, Lord Farnborough has got several of them. Dr. Matthews sat in a chair on the left-hand side of the bed, looking down at Ronnie's skeletal form. Marion had come in earlier and dressed her, and Ronnie was now connected to an intravenous drip, attempting to put essential nutrients back into her body. The catheter had been inserted into her groin, and on the right-hand side of the bed was a stand with a small bag of fluids attached to it. The duvet was pulled up to her throat, and Matthews could see the steady rise and fall of her chest. Barrera was standing on duty at the foot of her bed. A moment later there was a knock on the door. Barrera opened it quietly. Private Vickers was standing outside. He had some fresh stitches on the left side of his forehead, just below the hairline. He was in a clean uniform, and had either retrieved the gun from the wood or collected a new one. "I'm ready to take over, sir," he said to Corporal Barrera. Barrera looked carefully at him. "Are you sure? After a head injury, you're supposed to go off duty." "Just a scratch, sir," said Vickers. Matthews looked up from the chair next to the bed and inspected the stitches. "Any headache or dizziness?" he asked. "No, sir." "Blurred vision?" "No, sir." Matthews looked across at Barrera. "He should be fine." Barrera smiled. "Good lad. Could do with a bacon sarnie." Vickers nodded. "Marianne makes a mean bacon sarnie." "Does she?" Barrera said suggestively. "They do, sir." "Guess I'm headed to the kitchen then," said Barrera with a grin. He looked across to Vickers with concern. "Don't overdo it, lad. We've all had one hell of a morning. If it catches up with you, stand yourself down." "I will, sir." Dun dun dun. Which bit was the dun dun dun? Sorry, I missed it. Oh, the bit about Farnborough having several Veroandi. Okay, I'm guessing. "I will, sir." Barrera left the room, closing the door behind him. "How's she getting on, sir?" Vickers glanced down at the bed. "I don't understand what happened," said Matthews. "Yesterday she looked like a healthy girl. Today I would swear blind she's been starving for months. Is it bad?" "It could have been worse," said Matthews. "Her body has not entered catabolysis, from what I can tell." Vickers shook his head. "What's that?" Matthews resumed his seat next to Ronnie. "When the body runs low on sugar, it breaks down fat to turn into glucose for energy. When severely malnourished, it can also break down muscle tissue. It's the body doing the only thing it can do to keep itself alive, as a last resort before dying. While she's very thin, my examination suggests there is no sign of muscle wastage. That's why we are feeding her intravenously. As long as the body is taking in protein and carbs, it should not resort to more desperate measures." He paused. "She's very lucky. Any sign of her waking up?" asked Vickers. "No," said Matthews. There was another knock on the door. Vickers peered through the crack as he opened it slowly. Marianne was standing outside. Vickers opened the door fully and allowed them to walk in. "2 hot chocolates, plenty of sugars in both," she said, handing one to Matthews, who accepted it gratefully. They turned to Vickers, who took the other mug from them and frowned. Okay, and it sounds like it's Vickers that's frowning, but it's not. Let's just change that. They turned to Vickers, who took the other mug from them. Marianne frowned. "That was for Corporal Barrera," they admonished. "I think he's gone down to find you," said Vickers with a smile. "I might have accidentally told him how good your bacon sarnies are." Marianne looked down at Ronnie. "Any idea when she'll wake?" "None whatsoever, I'm afraid," replied Matthews. "I'm not going to rush her." The door opened again and Ursula stepped in. Matthews stood up and allowed the old lady to take the chair next to the bed. "Thank you, dear," said Ursula as she sat down. "No change since you were last here," said Matthews. Ursula looked up at him, then Vickers and Marianne. "Usually it would take months for this to happen during an interface. I've never seen anyone complete such a brief interface. It only happens for one reason. Idrisil had a lot of information get into her rapidly. When she wakes, she will have a lot to tell us." Marianne shook her head. "It's not going to be good news, is it?" Ursula raised her eyebrows. "Probably not. It's pointless to speculate. When she's ready, she'll talk to us." Ursula turned around and faced Matthews. "May I hold her hand?" Matthews nodded. Ursula rolled the duvet away and held onto Ronnie's hand. As she took it, she felt Ronnie's grip tighten slightly. She looked up at Matthews. She squeezed my hand. "Please try not to wake her," said Matthews. "Too late," croaked a thin voice. Ronnie opened her eyes and looked around her. Marianne walked to the other side of the bed and reached for her other hand. Ronnie smiled, which became broader when she noticed Ursula and Vickers. "Please go and get Oakley," she said. "There are some things you all need to hear." Matthews shook his head. "You need to rest." Ronnie nodded slowly. Marianne released her hand. "I'll go." They left the room. Ursula squeezed Ronnie's hand again. "Do you remember telling us that Lord Farnborough was the person leaking the information?" Ronnie closed her eyes. "Yes." "Where is he?" "He got away. Not before killing 2 soldiers and trying to kill Oakley and Marianne." "Why did he do that?" "I'll explain when Oakley gets here," said Ronnie. "You're very weak," said Matthews. "You lost almost all of your body fat. You were lucky not to have muscle wastage as well. Don't overexert yourself." Ronnie shook her head. "I won't." She lapsed into silence for a few moments before the door opened and Oakley walked in with Marianne. "Hello," said Ronnie with a small smile as she opened her eyes. She looked at Matthews. "Doctor, this is for their ears only. You need to go outside." Matthew shook his head. Okay. He looked directly at Marianne. Call me back immediately if there's a problem. Marianne nodded. With me, Private, said Matthews, indicating that Vickers should follow him out of the room. No, actually, he can stay, said Oakley. Matthews shook his head, pulled a face, and left the room. Oakley shut the door behind him. Marianne resumed their position on the right of the bed. The first thing you need to know is that Lord Farnborough is the person who's been leaking the information. He is working directly for the Red Victor organisation. He managed to keep his true intentions from Idrisil, but on his most recent interface, she was able to see past the mental blocks he'd successfully maintained until that point. Oakley frowned. I don't understand. He was created by the trees to fulfil a specific function. He should not be able to turn traitor. Ronnie shook her head. He has not turned traitor. Not technically, anyway. Idrisil has informed me that there are 2 tree factions. I'm going to put 2 factions within the trees. The one we work for believes the human race should be allowed to prove themselves. They call themselves the Idrisil faction. Those are the ones that have encouraged the directives that we have given the world governments. The others are called the Ragnarok faction. They believe that humanity is dangerous and savage and will tear itself apart rather than meet the directives. The Ragnarok faction want to go straight to sterilising the planet. Farnborough is working for them. He has been feeding information to the Red Victors in the belief that they will stir up enough trouble to prevent the directives from being achieved. There are similar figures representing the Ragnarok faction in most other countries. What about preserving the Yokunda? Asked Oakley. Originally, that needs to be. What about the designated survivors? That's program. Oh yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. What about the designated survivor program, the Opus and Yokunda? Asked Oakley. Originally, that is what both factions wanted. You need to understand that all of this has happened before. Millennia ago, there was another dominant intelligent species on this planet. They did as humanity has done. They started overusing resources, damaging the atmosphere, and behaving in the way we do now. There was no Idrisil faction then. The trees let that race die and used Skull to remove any evidence that they ever existed from the Earth so that subsequent intelligent life could develop anew. Ronnie was sitting up slightly now, so Marianne pulled up the pillows and placed them behind her head. Over the many billions of years, the trees came to regret that they had been responsible for what they came to understand as genocide, and the Idrisil faction formed to come up with a plan that did not mean the complete destruction of any new intelligent species. But mankind has become far more pernicious than the previous race ever was. The Idrisil faction convinced the Ragnarok faction that some of the next dominant species should be allowed to survive, but they disagreed on how to go about it. The Idrisil faction, I need to make sure these factions have... The Idrisil faction wants to try and allow us to save ourselves, whereas the Ragnarok faction feels that they should go straight to absorbing as many Yokunda and Opus as they can and let everyone else die. However, the human race has developed far more quickly... No, I'm going to lose the however. The human race has developed far more quickly than the previous dominant race, she said painfully. Technology and damage to the Earth is happening much faster than they predicted. When the Idrisil faction started implementing their plan by creating the first Aurora approximately 350 years ago, they had assumed that by now we would only be at levels of development and technology consistent with the 19th century. The Ragnarok faction believes that we are too destructive. Hang on. I'm getting tired now, so I'm going to start. Oh, sorry. So technology damage to the Earth is happening much, much faster than they predicted. Yes, that's deliberate. I just didn't read it out correctly. The Ragnarok faction believes that we are too... There should probably be a comma between them, shouldn't they? There we go. When the Idrisil faction started implementing their plan by creating the first Aurora approximately 350 years ago, they had assumed that by now we would only be at levels of development technology consistent with the 19th century. The Ragnarok faction believes that we are too destructive. About a century ago, they started to shift their point of view. They now think that no human life should be allowed to survive. When the Aurora were created, the Ragnarok faction insisted that some be loyal to them in case they needed to implement. Ronnie paused. Another extinction. But that's overcomplicated, surely, said Rokeley. If the Ragnarok faction wills the argument, they can just shut off oxygen. They don't need Aurora, Veroandi, or Skuld, or any of us to do that. They feel the need to win the argument first, said Ronnie. If they go ahead and kill us, then they will be guilty of a second genocide, which will reverberate within their society in a negative way for millennia to come. If they can prove that we will implode and turn upon ourselves, then they feel they can justify wiping us out. Farnborough and those like him are working to that end. What do we have to do? Asked Vickers. He was standing at the foot of the bed, his eyes wide and his face pale. Ronnie licked her dry lips. We must stop Lord Farnborough and the people like him from preventing the world from delivering the Idrisil directive, she said. If we do not, then all of this will have been for nothing. She gestured to Ursula, Oakley and Vickers. They will kill every single one of us. They will wipe out the human race. Dun, dun, dun. Ugh. Yeah, I'm getting a bit tired now, so... and that's not the final screen read through. Doff, doff, doff. Oh, yes. Yeah. They will kill every single one of us. They will wipe out the human race. Yeah. No, that'll do for now. Yeah, so that's the end of book 3 or section 3 or whatever. And then let me just have a look. And that's not signed off by any means. I will read through that several more times. Probably not as part of a live stream. I probably won't do another live stream until I'm ready to actually sign it off. What's chapter 27? Oh, so that's one back with Danny and co. I think I'm only a handful of chapters away from. Excellent. That's very good. Only about another 40. How many are in your plan? And how many will it be, do you reckon, by the time you've actually finished? Oh dear. Right, pod. 30 altogether, yeah. Cool. Right, I'm going to pod. So, Saturday the 7th. Saturday the 7th? Yeah, it is. Hello, today is Saturday the 7th of June 2025 and you are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. I'm in New York. I did suggest that I might try and do today's podcast from somewhere interesting like Central Park. It wasn't that I lied to you. Incognito. Oh, you enjoyed your incognito. Oh yeah, so I'm going to start again now. Sorry, I was like, what? I thought I'd done something wrong. So yeah. Well, I was literally sitting in the crew report centre. I probably could have gone outside and not have to speak into the microphone very, very quiet. Oh, don't worry, it's fine. I probably could have gone outside and not have to speak into the microphone very, very quietly, but I was kind of mentally preparing myself for the flight. Did not want to do one, obviously, because I'm trying to do one daily this month. Right, should we go for a take 2? Hello, today is Saturday the 7th of June 2025 and you are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, and I did kind of suggest that I might do this from an interesting location today that I'd be in. Well, I've done one from Times Square before, haven't I? But I kind of suggested I might do this from Central Park. Well, I haven't done that, I'm afraid, because I have done some exercise today. I went down to the gym this morning and did 10 miles on the static bike, which I really didn't enjoy, but I feel good for having done it. And then I decided I would come back to... No, I didn't. I had breakfast first. And it's one of those buffets, and I'm normally terribly badly behaved with buffets and feel that I've got to get my money's worth. But actually today, because I'd just been to the gym, I didn't do that. I had quite a lot of fruit and yoghurt, and then I had some porridge as well. But no, I ate sensibly, and I came back up to my room and started doing some work on chapters 24 and 25. And in fact, I managed to get those signed off. So, as of today, the 7th, I've done 5 of the 10 chapters I had targeted myself with this month. And I'm very pleased with that because, well, I mean, it just puts me very, very far ahead of my schedule. But that's good because it means I can get this finished earlier than perhaps I thought I might. I don't think I'm going to get far enough ahead to get it finished this month. Having said that, you never know, because I've got I think I clear from my Singapore-Sydney trip on the 25th. Let me just have a look. Oh, my phone's now trying to do something silly. That's annoying. I think I clear on the 25th. Yes. So I get home from Singapore, Sydney on the 25th, and then I've got the rest of that month off. So that's another, 7 days pretty much, before I then start my, 5 days off. But yes, I've got 5 days off at the end of this month before I start my unpaid leave month. So that's really good. And it probably means I'm going to get a lot further than I thought I might get this month. I don't think I will get as far as finishing this draft this month, but then that was never the intention. So if I don't, that's absolutely fine. But it would be nice to only have a handful of chapters left to do in July, which then frees me up in July to have a bit of fun because I'm not working. But just as importantly, I really want to get to work on the next. As I said earlier, I'm doing this podcast as part of a live stream, by the way. I kind of said earlier that I want to do some work on the still life sequel, which is called Self Portrait. Now, as part of NaNoWriMo, I think in 2022, I did write the first 12,000 words in the first 3 chapters of it. However, I've reread it and I don't like pretty much any of what I've written. So there is a prologue, which it needs to be there, and the contents of it need to be there. So kind of generally what happens in the prologue doesn't need to change, but I absolutely despise the way I've written it. So I'm going to write it from scratch without looking at that one again. I'm not going to try and edit it. I'm just going to start again with the prologue. It's set in 1918, and it features an unnamed soldier who has been kidnapped from the battlefield and told he's got to paint a picture of himself. And he's very but they're going to think I've deserted. I need to get back to my unit. They think I've deserted. And they're like, no, you're never going back to your unit. His captor is like, you're never going back to your unit. His captor isn't Max Sosi, but we find out later in the book it's Sosi's apprentice. I do have the name for the character, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. And then chapter 1 was just ghastly. It was set in a hospital after an attempted suicide by Molly Smith, and I don't think she would. I look back at kind of why I wrote it, and I'm not sure. I think it was to try and get some empathy for the character, but if you've read the first book, you've got plenty of empathy for the character anyway, and she's a bloody strong young lady. I don't think she would do that, and so that's just going to go. There may be an attempted suicide from one of the temporal refugees later in the story. It won't be Molly. Molly is the one that's going to hold it all together, and she basically is going to take on a role within the Sutherland Institute, and she is going to try and help these people from the past adapt to the modern day. And one of her charges may end up doing an attempted suicide. Somebody actually suggested to me, could one of Sosi's victims be pregnant? And I thought, yes, she could. And so that is something I am going to pursue in the second book. But the whole storyline of which is basically Isabel visiting Molly in hospital after a suicide attempt that she kind of admits was more a cry for help than a genuine attempt to die. It's just shit, and it's gone. It won't be coming back. That chapter is going to be excised completely. And then the third chapter was catching up on what's happened to Saywood, who basically has changed her name. She is now called Grace, and I can't remember what her surname is, but she's changed her name to Grace, and that's interesting because Saywood's original name was Grace. She was Grace Amapofo in quite a few chapters of the first draft, and then I remembered the name Saywood, and Saywood is a name I've had in the back of my head for years. It was actually the name of someone I used to work with. Nobody liked my character. I just remember thinking, that's a cool name, I like that, sort of mentally banking it and never doing anything with it. And when I knew Grace wasn't the right name for my character, suddenly realised, right, Saywood. So she's living under the name Grace something or other. She's built so many mental barriers around her mind that she can't accidentally reach out to someone. But one thing I've established in the first book is that physical contact you can't have barriers for. So if she touches someone or someone touches her and they've both got abilities, they will still be able to recognise that in each other. And she meets this Chinese immigrant who's here legally, but his mother isn't. And his mother is has a terminal disease, and basically this lad is working his arse off to try and get enough money to pay for the medication to keep her alive. And so that element of the story isn't going to change. That's the one chapter I may not rewrite. Saywood doesn't have a relationship with the Sutherland Institute. She's completely managed to stay away from it. However, she is still in touch with what's his name? Jagvir Singh. He kind of, he is. She is still in touch with him, and occasionally gets his advice on how to deal with certain things if they come up in terms of her abilities and stuff like that. So yes. So the prologue and chapter 1. Prologue will be rewritten. Chapter 1 is gone, and chapter 2, which was the one which introduces us to Saywood's life, probably has the most material in it that will be kept, but it's still not great and will be changed. Anyway, that's me for today. I'm recording live from New York. New York time, it's about midday. UK time, it's about 5:30 in the afternoon. I'm going to go now, and I will talk to you again tomorrow from, hopefully, my home. Take care. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye. Ooh, and you have to press the off button, not the... my phone keeps doing silly buggers. Some start spreading the news about his podcast. I don't know what you mean. Some start spreading the news about his podcast. I'm guessing there's a typo or one in there. So start spreading news about this podcast. Okay. I need to get back into the habit because I was doing social media daily, where I advertised it. That's a habit I need to get back into. New York. I could call this one New York, couldn't I? Right, let me just do the... starts... Sorry. See, jokes work if you'd said that to me, I'd have got it immediately. But because it's typed, my brain just didn't make the connection. Weird. Right. Oh, hello, Angel Faye. You've just caught me right at the end, actually. Bless you. I've just signed off 2 further chapters of Empress of the Trees. And I am about to... just recorded my podcast, which I'm about to release. And then I'm going to have to go because I'm in New York. And my alarm call for work is in about 8 o'clock, so it's in about 7.5 hours time. So I'm going to go down and have some lunch, and then yes, you just caught me. Yes, I'm going to go down and have some lunch, and then I shall finish the podcast, and then I shall go down and have some lunch, and that'll be me done for the day, or edit the podcast, should I say? Let me just quickly do this. The one thing I'd mentioned to you that I've joined a writing group in my hometown, which I'm quite pleased with, Tani. And one of the things they did was ask how often you write, and I said I'm actually in pretty good habits now. I do write, most of this year I've been writing fairly regularly. And if they ever get onto how do you do it, how do you motivate yourself to do it, I will say, well, actually, I do a podcast. The aim isn't that people listen to it, although how many people do, but it's really motivated me, and it really has. It really is doing its job. Right, let me just check. Hello, today is... Sorry, the audio cuts in a bit too late, so let me just check that's right now. Hello, today is Saturday. There we go. Yeah, I actually have, I don't know if you've noticed, you probably haven't noticed, but I always have the music cutting in at the audio cutting in at exactly the same point in the music, because I'm a sad, obsessive idiot. Right. Let me drag the end credits across, and... Oh, no, what are you doing? Right. Perfectionist sounds better. Yeah, I suppose. Right, and then let's just make sure that works. In the afternoon, I'm going to go now, and I will talk to you again tomorrow from, hopefully, my home. Take care, thanks for listening, bye-bye. You have been listening to the... Right, so that's fine. So file export as MP3 07 0625. Save, and then I shall actually... I don't know if I am a perfectionist. I think it's hard to be a total perfectionist when you're a writer, because although I do get to a point where I think this is good enough, and that's not quite how a perfectionist would behave. Although I would say probably my levels of that'll do are probably quite high. My threshold for that'll do is probably quite high. It isn't oh that'll do, that's a bit shit, but it'll do. I'm usually fairly happy with something. Oh, have I just saved that wrong? Oh no, I've saved it there, that's why. Right, let me just delete the old podcasts, because I have uploaded them, so I don't need them. Let's drag that into there. Right. And hopefully it will appear on my phone. Sorry, I'm going to just go into Creators. It's podcast 131, good grief. Is it? Oh, it has. It's there. Lovely. Right, yes. So what can I call this podcast today? I'm not going to call it New York, New York, but I like the idea of using a quote from the song. Let's see if I can find the lyrics, the full New York lyrics. So you're leaving today. Well, I am leaving today. I want to be puffing your vagabond shoes, they're longing to stray. I wake up in the seat that doesn't sleep, find your king of the hill, top of the heap. Your small town blues, they're melting away. I'm going to make... You better believe it, folks. I'm going to call it Your Vagabond Shoes. And where are we? 7th of June 2025. I report in from New York City, where I've done some exercise and some writing, exclamation mark, can't be bad, ... So I report in from New York City, where I've done some exercise and some writing, can't be bad. Okay, that's done. And then change the logo, so it's episode 131 of season 2. Sorry if any comments are coming up, because I'm on the phone uploading this, I can't see them, but I will give them attention in a moment. Change logo to the new one. Right. Okay, podcast is uploaded. Let me just call this up on the screen and go there. You prefer your title? Sorry. I prefer something slightly more, but I'm going to do that in the future. Mind you, I can't imagine there's songs about every destination I go to. Let's see if I can find a song about Singapore. So I will. Sorry, I haven't emailed out my roster to you guys. There is a song by One Republic called Singapore. And there's a Bob Dylan song called On a Little Street in Singapore. Okay, there you go. So that's my new thing. I'm going to name the podcast after a lyric about the place I'm in, if such a thing exists. I will email, Bow Street Society, my roster. I still haven't done it this month, as you know. I've got a couple of days off when I get home. So I get home tomorrow, which is Sunday. I've got Monday and Tuesday off. Then Wednesday I've got this weird Madrid and back. So we don't stay in Madrid, but we're on the ground for 2.5 hours, which is really unusual. Normally we're on the ground for about 50 minutes whilst they get passengers off, clean it and get the new passengers on. We're on the ground for 2.5 hours, so that's going to be a bit boring. I did find out why. Apparently it's so we can keep certain slots from both airports. So there's a reason why there's the big gap. But yeah, so there's that. And then immediately after that I'm going to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, which I've never been to Saudi Arabia before. However, I'm positioning there which means I'm flying out as a passenger. And the reason for that is we're flying out on an aircraft that has 8 crew, but we're flying home on an aircraft that needs 10 crew. So I'm one of the two. There's 2 of us that are flying out as passengers but working home. So that'll be interesting. So I shall basically do some writing on that flight. And then, assuming nothing changes, because they ask you to take your uniform, because if something happens at the last minute, you might be required to work. But probably not. Because even if somebody didn't turn up on the day, they would still put somebody on the flight from standby, because they'd still need somebody to, they still need a total of 10 people on the flight home. So yeah, and then after that I've got Singapore, Sydney, which I clear on the 25th, and then I'm done until at least the 1st of, at the latest, at the earliest I'll be going back is the 1st of August. I'm going to use my business class tickets, and I'm thinking Canada might be a place to go for a week. Yeah, maybe. We shall see. Anyway, that's me waffling. Well, yeah, it's appalling, isn't it? All this laziness of mine. Right. That's me done for the podcast. Thank you, Bow Street Society, for joining in, and thank you to Angel Faye, who's just joined me at the end. I don't know if I'll be doing something tomorrow, because I'll be quite jet lagged. I'll probably do some read throughs of the chapter I've just read through on here, but I will probably do something on, let me get this right, Monday or Tuesday. Anyway, thank you both for watching, and anybody else who has watched but hasn't sort of said hello, and I'll be back at some point in the next couple of days. Take care. Thank you. Bye bye.